Wade divided Bell Farm with their mother's butter knife. He laid the county map across the kitchen table, flattened one curling corner with the sugar bowl, and drew the dull blade along the black property lines. "North Fields and the house come to me," he said. "Connor gets the river ground, the lower barn, and the west tract." The knife traveled over every green-shaded acre before stopping at a brown smudge beside County Road 16. "And Mara keeps the stand." Connor stared into his coffee. Mara waited for one of them to smile. The stand sat on 7/10 of an acre between the highway ditch and a row of dying pines. Its floor leaned east. Its roof leaked above the onions. The narrow room upstairs had one electrical outlet, no shower, and a window that rattled when logging trucks passed. Wade folded his hands as if he had offered her the family silver. "It's the part you ran," he said. "We thought you'd want it." Outside, 400 acres lay under a thin skin of March frost. Mara could see the nearest field through the window behind him, smooth and pale in the early light. She had walked that field barefoot. She had buried a rooster at its edge and lost the heel of her mother's good shoe there after a summer storm. Every field went to her brothers. She got the place beside the road where people stopped when they needed directions. 6 days earlier, they had buried their father in the only suit he owned. It was navy blue and too tight across the shoulders because he had bought it for Mara's mother's funeral the previous August, then spent the months afterward shrinking everywhere except his hands. Those hands seemed to remain in the kitchen. They were in the repaired latch on the bread box and the pencil marks beside the telephone. They were in the coffee cup nobody had moved from the drying mat. It had a faded red tractor on it and a chip where his front tooth used to hit. Mara kept looking at that cup because looking at Wade made her want to say something she could not take back. The estate lawyer had explained that their father's will left the property to the three of them in equal shares. Equal on paper was not equal on the ground. Bell Farm carried machinery loans, a line of credit, and enough deferred maintenance to make a roofer laugh out loud. Splitting it required either an agreement or a fight. Wade had arrived with the agreement. "It's not just acreage," he said. "Connor and I are taking the operating debt." "You're taking the equipment too," Mara said. "Well, yes, because we'll be operating it. The grain bins, they're part of the North Tract. The irrigation pump, river ground," Connor said quietly. "That'd be mine." It was the first thing he had said since they sat down. Mara turned toward him. At 31, Connor still had the open, worried face that made strangers confess things to him in checkout lines. He had driven their father to dialysis when Mara could not leave their mother. He had also missed 3 appointments because Wade needed help hauling soybeans. Connor was gentle in ways that cost him little and obedient in ways that cost everybody else. "And the well?" Mara asked. Wade shifted the butter knife back to the map. "The main well sits with the house. The stand uses that well. We can work out an arrangement." "What arrangement?" "For water, Mara. I know what water is." Connor rubbed his thumb over a coffee stain. The stain was shaped like Florida. Wade exhaled through his nose. He was 35 and could make impatience look like a burden nobly carried. He had brought breakfast biscuits that morning. He had remembered Mara took hers with grape jelly. He had also marked every productive inch of their parents' land with 2 colors of highlighter before asking what she wanted. "You're making this sound ugly," he said. "I haven't made it sound like anything. We're trying to keep the farm intact by cutting it into 2 pieces, 2 working pieces." There it was. Not cruel enough to object to without looking sensitive, not vague enough to misunderstand. Mara folded her arms. "And what is the stand?" Wade glanced at it on the map. "Yours." The refrigerator motor clicked off. In the sudden quiet, the kitchen seemed to listen. Their father had always called the stand the front door of Bell Farm. He said a field could feed people and still remain invisible to them, but once you put a tomato in somebody's hand, they understood what weather had done all year. He had also called the stand hen work when he was irritated, as if weighing peaches and calming angry customers belonged naturally to women and chickens. Mara could hear both versions of him. On the counter sat a foil pan from Lena Ortiz containing half a funeral lasagna. Lena had written Bell Family across the lid in thick black marker, then drawn an arrow toward one corner and added more cheese here. Her kindness had instructions. Mara wanted to heat a piece, eat it standing at the sink, and leave both brothers at the table until they grew old. Instead, she asked, "What's the stand valued at?" Wade slid a page toward her. The number at the bottom was less than the remaining balance on his pickup. "There's the structure," he said. "The roadside parcel, the fixtures." "What fixtures?" "The counters, shelving. The shelves came from the old chicken house. They still count. The upstairs room? Included." Connor finally looked up. "You could fix it nice." Mara gave him a long look. He lifted one shoulder. "I mean, if you wanted." Wade tapped another number. "We'll pay you the difference in value over 5 years. The annual payment would barely cover health insurance." Mara had spent 6 years working around the farm without a regular wage. Groceries appeared. Her truck insurance got paid. Their mother sometimes tucked $40 into Mara's coat pocket and acted offended if Mara found it while she was still in the room. There had always been a reason not to discuss money: a bad harvest, a medical appointment, a piece of equipment screaming for repair. Now money was the only language on the table, and her brothers spoke it fluently. "What happens if I say no?" she asked. Connor's chair creaked. Wade did not answer immediately. That was one of his talents. He let silence soften whatever he did not wish to say. "We sell," he said at last. "Or we spend a year paying lawyers to decide how to sell. The bank won't wait while we work through our feelings." Our feelings. You know what I mean. She did. Wade had a machinery payment due in April. Connor's river fields needed drainage work. Seed had to be ordered, fuel contracted, ground prepared. Grief might have stopped time inside the farmhouse, but it had not impressed a single creditor. Mara looked again at the map. The stand's little parcel resembled a crumb someone had brushed aside. "When do you need an answer?" Wade capped his pen. "We were hoping today." Connor closed his eyes. Not for long. Just a blink that lasted 1 second too many. Mara stood and carried her untouched coffee to the sink. Her father's pasture jacket still hung beside the back door, one sleeve turned inside out. Wade had probably overlooked it because it held no acreage. She pushed the sleeve through with her hand. Behind her, papers shifted. "You could take a few days," Connor said. Wade said nothing. That nothing contained the loan officer, the planting calendar, the appraisal fee, and the fact that Wade had already begun speaking about the North Fields as his. Mara turned. "Did Dad know you planned this?" Wade's expression changed so slightly that she might have invented it. "Dad knew Connor and I meant to keep farming. That isn't what I asked. He knew you loved the stand." Connor's gaze dropped again. A question rose to Mara's mouth, but it had nowhere safe to land. In the last winter of his life, her father had forgotten which day trash was collected and accused Mara of moving a gate that had not moved since 1989. Whatever he had told Wade might have been clear, confused, loving, careless, or all four before lunch. Mara sat down. The pen Wade offered was their mother's, a cheap silver one from the feed store that clicked twice before the point came out. 5 years on the payments, Mara said. Not dependent on harvest. Correct. Access to the house well until I put in another source. Wade's jaw tightened. For a reasonable period. 90 days, 60. Then you can explain to every customer why Bell's stand has no water. Connor made a sound that might have been a cough hiding a laugh. Wade looked at him. 90. And the Bell's roadside stand sign. That's attached to the building, Connor said. I want it written down. Wade wrote it in the margin. Mara signed where yellow tabs told her to sign. Her name looked unfamiliar each time. The M too tall, the last a trailing downward as though it had lost the strength to finish. When she was done, Wade gathered the pages carefully and put them into a blue folder. Connor remained seated. That's it? Mara asked. Wade stood. For a moment he looked relieved enough to hug her. Then he seemed to realize a hug would require, admitting something had happened. We'll make this work, he said. For who? He picked up the butter knife and placed it beside the sink. All of us. 3 mornings later, Mara woke to the sound of metal striking wood. She had not officially moved into the room above the stand, but cardboard boxes already covered most of its floor. Wade wanted the farmhouse cleared by the end of the month, so he could use the downstairs as an office and rent the upstairs to seasonal workers. Mara had started carrying things over 1 truckload at a time. Clothes, her mother's sewing basket, 2 lamps, a saucepan, the chipped tractor cup. The room's window shivered with another bang. Mara pulled on jeans and went downstairs in socks. Cold air came through the open double doors at the back of the stand. Wade stood beside the walk-in cooler with a pry bar. Connor was crouched near its base, disconnecting a line. Two hired men waited with a flatbed trailer, studying the ceiling as if it contained important weather. "What are you doing?" Mara asked. Wade glanced over. "Morning. What are you doing?" "Moving the cooler." "Where?" "Lower barn." Mara looked from him to Connor. "The cooler is part of the stand. It's listed under farm equipment. The agreement says fixtures. This isn't a fixture. It's bolted to the floor. So's a milking stanchion. Still equipment." Connor stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "We thought you knew." Mara stared at him. "Did you?" He stopped wiping. Wade wedged the pry bar behind a strip of trim. "We need cold storage for seed and chemicals. I need cold storage for food. You aren't open. It's March." "Exactly." One of the hired men coughed into his fist and walked outside. Mara stepped between Wade and the cooler door. "You can't take it." Wade lowered the pry bar. His voice softened, which was worse. "Mara, this unit came out of Dad's equipment loan. I checked the inventory. If you want, I'll leave you the white refrigerator, the one that freezes lettuce and leaks on the plug. It works. It hums." "That's not the same thing." Connor looked toward the shelves where dustless rectangles marked the places jam jars had sat the previous summer. "We can help you find something used," he said. "With what money?" Neither brother answered. The cooler had a dent at shoulder height from the day their father backed a pallet jack into it and blamed the sun. Mara put her palm over the dent. Wade waited. He was not enjoying this. That was almost funny. He wanted the cooler, her agreement, and freedom from the experience of taking either. Mara moved her hand. "Don't tear the door frame," she said. By noon, the cooler was gone. Its absence left a square of clean concrete and a dark opening in the paneled wall. Cold wind came through gaps that had been hidden for 22 years. Connor lingered after Wade drove away. He set the white refrigerator upright near the counter and plugged it in. The motor started with a wet rattle. "See," he said, "still runs." Mara picked up a broom. Connor shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. "You want help cleaning?" "No, I could patch that wall." "No." He nodded as if she had answered a different question. At the door, he paused. "Dad did love this place, you know." Mara swept a line of gray dust across the floor. Then he should have taught it to drink without water. Connor left. Near sunset, while Mara was fitting cardboard over the hole, an old green pickup turned off the county road. The driver parked crooked, climbed out, and lowered the tailgate. Hal Mercer stood there in mud-caked boots beside 6 wooden crates of seed potatoes. He looked at the empty cooler space, the refrigerator leaking a brown line across the floor, and Mara holding cardboard against the wall with one shoulder. "Bad time?" he asked. Mara nearly laughed. Hal lifted one crate. "Your dad said I could leave these here till Tuesday." The words landed so naturally that Mara turned toward the back office, half expecting her father to call out where they should go. Hal adjusted the crate against his stomach. "You still taking things in?" Mara looked around the strip stand, at the warped counters, at the handwritten price cards left from autumn, at the old sign visible backward through the front window. Her brothers had taken every field, and now they had taken the cold room, but someone had come to the roadside looking for her father's word. Mara opened the office door. "Put them in here," she said. Hal carried the first crate into the office and set it beneath the desk. "Tuesday morning," he said. "Lena will pick them up when she comes through." "Lena Ortiz? You know another Lena with opinions about potatoes?" Mara held the door while he brought in the remaining 5 crates. The office was hardly warmer than the sales floor, but it had no broken wall and the window faced north. Her father's metal desk occupied most of the space. A dead calendar still showed September, with cider press circled on the 18th and Call Joni written across the bottom in blue pencil. "What does Lena want with your seed potatoes?" Mara asked. Hal settled the last crate beside the others. "Nothing. Grant Brothers does. Eli's place, his cousin's place. Eli just does whatever needs doing and complains he's being exploited by blood relatives." That sounded like Eli. He had worked summers for the Bells when he was younger, then gone wherever a piece of machinery or a stubborn animal had made somebody desperate enough to call him. Mara had not seen him since the funeral, where he had stood near the back with grease still under his nails. Hal brushed dirt from his gloves. "Lena's taken the potatoes because she's already driving west Tuesday. Grant's bringing her empty peach crates back. Saves me 40 miles, and them 40. And you always left things here?" "Sometimes." Mara looked at the 6 crates. Hal looked at them too. Sometimes, more than sometimes. How did Dad keep track? Mostly hollering. That sounds organized. He wrote things down. Hal nodded toward the desk. Till he didn't. Mara sat in her father's chair. The cracked vinyl exhaled beneath her. She opened the top drawer and found rubber bands, batteries of uncertain age, a pocket knife, and 19 pens that did not work. In the second drawer lay 3 yellow legal pads filled with crop weights, telephone numbers, and notes that assumed the reader already understood them. Joni, Lena, Fry, H.O.'s G, 2 pallets. Ray's pump, not the blue one. Helpful, Mara said. Hal leaned over her shoulder. There you go. There I go where? He smiled, showing the small gap between his front teeth. Your daddy knew. That's not knowing. That's leaving clues for an investigator. He could make sense of it. He isn't here. The smile left Hal's face, but not in a wounded way. He picked up one of the dead pens and clicked it twice. No, he said. He isn't. Mara wished she could pull the words back. Hal and her father had spent 30 years insulting each other's tractors. At the burial, Hal had placed one hand on the casket and whispered something Mara had pretended not to hear. She closed the drawer. I'll make sure Lena gets them, I figured. Why? Because I left them. His trust irritated her. It felt less like praise than a weight handed over without warning. What if I'd gone somewhere? She asked. Hal glanced at the cardboard covering the cooler's absence, then toward the ceiling, where the pipes from the upstairs room rattled when the wind hit. Where are you going? He did not say it unkindly. Mara walked him out to his truck. Before climbing in, he pulled a folded 20 from his wallet. For storage. No, it's business. You've never paid for storage. Your dad had fields. You got a wall made of a shipping box. She folded his fingers back around the bill. Come Tuesday, if your potatoes are frozen or stolen, then you can charge me $20. That is the opposite of how business works. Drive home, Hal. He got into the truck, grumbling that the Bell family had never understood commerce. The left taillight blinked when he tapped the brakes, though he had not used his turn signal. Mara went back inside and stood in the office doorway. The legal pads bothered her. So did the dead calendar and the 6 crates, and the fact that Hal knew she had nowhere else to go. Most of all, the stripped outline of the cooler bothered her. It looked indecent, like the pale place beneath a wedding ring. She swept until dark. Upstairs, she plugged in one of her mother's lamps and put the tractor cup on the sill. The room held a narrow bed that had belonged to a seasonal worker years ago. Its mattress sagged in the middle, and somebody had carved Dan loves Sherry into the wooden headboard. A later resident had scratched not anymore beneath it. Mara lay down fully dressed. The refrigerator motor downstairs started, knocked 3 times, and stopped. Excellent, she said to the ceiling. She slept for 40 minutes at a time. Between logging trucks, the pipes, and the refrigerator's death throes, the building seemed determined to announce every minute it survived. At 7 the next morning, Connor knocked on the front glass. Mara went downstairs carrying one boot and opened the door. He stood beside a cardboard carton full of plumbing fittings, his cheeks red from the cold. What happened? She asked. To what? You're here before breakfast. Somebody must be bleeding. I brought parts. For the well? For the sink. Wade said we've got 90 days on water, not free repairs. Did the sink ask you for repairs? Connor set the carton on the counter. The shutoff leaks. It leaked yesterday. It'll leak more tomorrow. He crouched beneath the sink before she could stop him. Mara watched his shoulders disappear into the cabinet. Their father used to say Connor could repair anything, as long as nobody watched. Wade could repair anything as long as everybody did. Mara put on her second boot. Did Wade send you? No. Does he know you're here? The wrench stopped moving. He knows I go places. That's not an answer. It's the one I have. Water spat inside the cabinet. Connor cursed, bumped his head, and emerged with his hair wet along one side. Mara handed him a dish towel. He pressed it to his ear. You could say thank you. You could say sorry about the cooler. I did. You said you thought I knew. I was sorry you didn't. That is not the same thing. He looked down at the wrench. No. The agreement between them was so unexpected that Mara had nothing ready for it. Connor tightened the new valve, wiped the cabinet floor, and carried the rusted fittings to the door. He noticed the crates through the office. Those Hal's? Apparently everybody knows about Hal's potatoes except me. Dad stored stuff for people. What stuff? Connor shrugged. Produce, parts, envelopes. What envelopes? Money, probably. You left money here? Not me. You just said, I said probably. He opened the door, then hesitated. Ask Joni Pike. Why? She'll tell you more than you wanted to know. It's her gift. He left before Mara could ask where to find her. Joni arrived on her own that afternoon. She was a square-built woman in a canvas jacket, with gray hair cut close around her ears and a voice that suggested she had spent decades speaking over livestock. She entered without knocking, placed a white envelope on the counter, and looked around. Where's the cooler? My brothers took it. Why? They own it. Didn't answer the question. Joni pushed the envelope toward Mara. Lena was written on the front. What is this? $240. Mara did not touch it. Why? For cheese. Whose cheese? Mine, I hope. Otherwise, I've been milking the wrong cows. Mara looked at the envelope again. Why are you giving Lena money? She sold 12 wheels for me at the winter market. And you leave the payment here. That's what a countertop's for. I thought it was for selling things. Can do 2 jobs. Joni, I don't know anything about this. Joni studied her with light blue eyes. You know Lena. Yes, you know me. I have met you 4 times. 5. You brought your mother out to the dairy when she wanted real buttermilk. That afternoon returned to Mara with uncomfortable clarity, her mother in a red scarf, thinner than she admitted, insisting grocery store buttermilk had been frightened by a machine. Joni's face softened. Your mama sat in my kitchen and told me my biscuits were too dry. They probably were. They were terrible. Mara picked up the envelope. It was unsealed. You counted this? Twice. I'm going to count it again. Good. Mara counted the bills, wrote the amount and date on the front, then found a clean legal pad. On the first line she wrote, Joni Pike to Lena Ortiz, $240, cheese. She showed it to Joni. That satisfy you? I was satisfied when I walked in. It satisfies me, even better. Joni glanced at the empty shelves. You opening this spring? I don't know. You ought to. With what? Things people buy. Mara stared at her. Cheese, for instance, Joni said. I don't have a cooler, I noticed. And I don't have money to buy inventory. Sell it for me. Keep $1 a wheel. $1? 2 then. Don't get swollen-headed. You'd leave food in that refrigerator? Joni listened as the motor downstairs, or rather directly behind them, gave a grinding groan. No, she said. I'm trusting, not stupid. She took a business card from her pocket and wrote a number on the back. Fellow in Easton closed his sandwich shop. Has a glass front cooler sitting in storage. Ugly as regret, but it ran last I heard. What does he want for it? More than you've got and less than Wade's boots. Everyone seemed to know exactly how little Mara possessed. Joni tucked the envelope upright behind the register. Lena checks there first. Does anybody call before coming? Your father hated the phone. He spent half his life on it. Yes, hating. The glass door banged shut behind her. By Tuesday, the office held Hal's potatoes, Joni's envelope, 2 empty peach crates someone had dropped off after midnight, and a rebuilt alternator tagged Ray, Blue Truck, not Blue Tractor. Mara made a separate line on her legal pad for each item. She added telephone numbers where she could get them and arrows where she could not. Lena arrived at 10 in an ancient white van painted with curling green vines. She was 62, wore lipstick to haul produce, and could turn unloading boxes into a form of theater. I brought you breakfast, she announced. She handed Mara a warm paper bag, then walked past her into the office. Hal's potatoes. Good. Joni's money. Better. Whose alternator? Ray's. Which Ray? There's more than one? There are 9. Mara showed her the tag. Lena nodded. Big Ray. Is there a small Ray? Larger than Big Ray. That's how you tell them apart. She counted Joni's money, signed Mara's pad with a flourish, and began moving the potatoes to her van. Mara joined her. Why didn't any of you tell me Dad was running a depot? He wasn't running a depot. What would you call this? Lena lifted a crate. It's Tuesday. The answer followed Mara back inside. Lena had left 3 baskets on the counter. Apples, soft at their shoulders and freckled from storage. You forgot those, Mara called. No, I didn't. I can't pay for them. Pay me when they sell. What if they don't? Then make sauce. Mara examined one. It was not pretty, but it smelled bright and sweet when she pressed her thumb near the stem. How much? $4 a basket to me. Whatever more you can get is yours. That's too much risk for you. Lena slid the van doors shut. Mara, there'll be compost by Friday. Don't flatter yourself. After she left, Mara carried the baskets to the front window. She wiped dust from one section of glass, found a piece of cardboard, and wrote apples, $6 in black marker. The display looked painfully small. $6 became 18 if all three sold. Mara would keep 6, enough for a tube of caulk maybe, or a breakfast if she stopped being given it by women who disapproved of her weight. She unlocked the front door and turned the old sign from closed to open. The first car pulled in 11 minutes later. A woman in a cream-colored SUV stepped inside, glanced at the apples, and then peered around the empty stand. "Oh," she said, "I thought the bellboys had reopened the real place." Mara felt the insult find every bruise her brothers had left. She picked up a paper bag. "They took the fields," she said. "The stand is mine." The woman blinked as if the roadside stand had spoken. "I only meant there isn't much in here," she said. "That's true. Your father used to have corn this time of year." "He did not." "Well, something green in March?" The woman considered the shelves, unwilling to surrender the memory. "Cabbage, maybe." Mara opened the paper bag with a snap. "Would you like apples? Are they bell apples? Ortiz orchard?" "Oh, Lena's." The woman brightened. "Those are good." She chose 4, rejecting each one twice before returning to the first 4. Mara weighed them on the hanging scale, which claimed they totaled 3 pounds. The counter scale claimed 2.5. They settled on 3 because the hanging scale was older and therefore, according to the customer, more honest. At the register, the woman handed Mara a 20. "I didn't mean anything by the real place," she said. Mara counted out her change. People rarely do. The woman took her bag and remained at the counter. "Your brothers are planting all grain, I heard. They're preparing to. Your father always did sweet corn, 7 acres last year. Best corn in the county. It was from Hal Mercer's place." The woman's mouth opened. "Dad's field flooded," Mara explained. "We bought Hal's and sold it under Hal's name. The small white sign beside the bin said, Mercer." "I suppose I never noticed." "No." The woman looked down at her apples. "I'm Paula Hines. I know. You bought 12 jars of blackberry jam last July and returned one because it had a seed in it." Paula gave a surprised laugh. "It had quite a few seeds. That's where blackberries keep them." Paula laughed again, less cautiously. When she left, she took one of Lena's entire baskets instead of only the 4 apples. Mara had to chase her into the parking lot because she had given $6 too much. By noon, the wind had tipped the open sign over twice. Mara tied it to a concrete block with baling twine. One truck slowed but did not turn in. A man in a county utility vest entered, used the restroom, and bought nothing. Mara did not tell him the restroom was upstairs through her bedroom because she had not yet decided whether that would be funny. She ate Lena's breakfast at the counter. The biscuit contained egg, ham, pepper jelly, and enough butter to make the paper translucent. Her mother would have called it a coronary folded in foil, then eaten half. At 3, a young man in paint-spattered overalls bought 2 apples and asked if she sold boiled peanuts. At 4, an older couple argued for 10 minutes over preserves she did not have. They purchased nothing but left with Joni's telephone number after Mara mentioned cheese. She sold the last basket just before closing. $18 lay in the register. 12 belonged to Lena. Mara spread the bills on the counter and stared at her $6 profit. It was not enough to fix anything. It was not enough to insure anything. It did not replace the cooler Wade had removed, and it certainly did not prove she had been right to sign away 400 acres. Still, $6 had not existed that morning. She took one bill upstairs and tucked it beneath the tractor cup. The following day, Mara drove to Easton to inspect the glass front cooler. It stood in a storage unit behind a building that had once sold tires and now offered tax preparation beside a tanning salon. The former sandwich shop owner was named Pete Darnell. He had a white beard, a knee brace, and the defeated manner of a man who had spent 20 years explaining the difference between rye and pumpernickel. "Compressor was good in November," he said. Fan made a noise. "What kind of noise?" "A fan noise. I've heard good fans and bad fans. This one was somewhere between. The cooler was 7 feet tall and nearly as wide as Mara's front window. One door had a plastic handle, the other a metal handle, and a faded strip across the top still advertised orange soda. Inside, 4 wire shelves were stained but solid. Mara opened the door and smelled old pickles. How much? 400. Joni said less. Joni thinks everything costs what it did when Gerald Ford was president. What did you tell her? 350. Why am I 400? Pete rubbed his beard. Because she scares me. Mara crouched to examine the cord. The plug had been replaced with one large enough to power a small sawmill. I have $70, she said. Then you don't have a cooler. I have $70 today. And an empty building beside the highway. Congratulations. I can pay you $50 a week after I start selling cold food. Pete leaned against a stack of folded cafe chairs. If the cooler dies, I'll pay $25 a week while I'm not selling cold food. That is the saddest financing proposal I've ever heard. It's also the only one. He stared at her long enough that Mara became aware of the dust on her boots and a tear in her jacket cuff. You're Frank Bell's daughter, he said. She disliked the sudden change in his voice. Yes, he sold my potato salad. I'm sorry, it was excellent potato salad. I'm sorry your sandwich shop closed. Retired. That sign says, retired. The sign taped to the storage unit said, liquidation. Pete followed her gaze. My knees retired. The business got dragged along. He opened the cooler and lifted 1 wire shelf. 300, 70 down, 25 a week. You move it. You fix the fan. If you miss 2 payments, I come get it. Fair. No, it isn't. I've got 4 people wanting this. Do they know about the fan? They understand fan noises. Mara held out her hand. Pete looked at it. You're supposed to argue me lower. I need enough energy to move it. He shook her hand. Only after she signed his payment sheet did Mara realize she had no way to transport a 7-foot cooler. Joni did not answer her phone. Lena answered and said, absolutely not, before Mara finished the sentence. You don't know what I'm asking. You're asking to use my van. I'm asking if you know anyone with a trailer. I do. Who? Someone who is standing in your roadside stand wondering why you went to buy a cooler without measuring the door. Mara pulled the phone away and checked the screen. Who's standing in my stand? Eli. He was sitting on the front counter when Mara returned, eating crackers from a sleeve he had found beneath the register. At 30, Eli Grant had the long, loose build of a man assembled for reaching into inconvenient machinery. His brown hair curled around the edges of a canvas cap. A pale scar crossed his chin, and his boots were cleaner than his hands. You broke in, Mara said. The door was open. I locked it. The back door was locked. The front was expressing a preference. You stole crackers. These expired in December, so you stole bad crackers. I saved your reputation. He folded the wrapper and put it in his pocket. Mara remembered that about him. Eli could leave every tool he owned scattered across a workbench, but would carry a gum wrapper for miles rather than drop it. What did Lena tell you? That you bought a cooler 3 inches taller than your back door. Mara stopped. Eli grinned. There it is. I measured the width. Height's a dimension too. I know what dimensions are. Good. This'll go faster. He had already removed the loose cardboard covering the hole where the walk-in cooler had been. New lumber and a roll of insulation lay on the floor. I didn't ask you to patch that. Hal did. Why? He's afraid his potatoes caught a draft. His potatoes are gone. Then it's revenge. Mara touched one of the cut boards. What do I owe you? Nothing yet. No. Eli's grin faded. It's scrap from a job. I'm here. The hole's here. You're working. Work costs money. Fine. Feed me lunch. I have apples. Lunch generally involves something that died. I have expired crackers. He looked offended. Those were an appetizer. They settled on $20, payable when Mara had $20 that did not belong to Lena or Pete Darnell. Eli patched the wall, then drove with Mara to Easton in his flatbed. Pete watched them tilt the cooler beneath the storage unit door. You measure? He asked. Yes, Mara and Eli said together. They had not. The cooler fit on the truck with an inch to spare. It did not fit through the stand's back door at all. Eli removed the door from its hinges. Then the storm molding. Then he looked at the cooler, looked at the opening, and scratched his chin. What? Mara asked. Nothing. What kind of nothing? The kind where you get a pry bar. They removed the trim Connor had told Wade not to tear. The cooler passed through with less than half an inch on either side. By dusk, it stood against the interior wall, plugged into the oversized outlet that had served the old walk-in unit. The motor started. The fan gave a high metallic shriek. Eli flinched. Sounds like a bobcat in a mailbox. Can you fix it? Probably. For how much? He turned to her. Do you ask the price of oxygen before you breathe? Oxygen hasn't sent me an invoice. It will. Give it time. He unplugged the unit, removed a lower panel, and lay on the floor with his head and shoulders inside. Mara swept sawdust around his boots. You still working for your cousins? She asked. Against my better judgment. Hal said they're exploiting you. My campaign for public sympathy is going well. You could work somewhere else. I do. Then they call, and you go. A wrench clicked inside the cooler. You planning to make a point? No. Good. I'm busy. Mara leaned on the broom. Eli had been 23 when her mother first got sick. He came by one evening to replace a belt on the washing machine and stayed until midnight, fixing a porch light her father had ignored for 11 years. Afterward, Mara made grilled cheese, and they ate on the kitchen floor because her mother was sleeping. Eli kissed her once by his truck. Mara kissed him back, then spent 6 months answering every invitation with a reason she could not leave the farm. He eventually stopped asking. The fan came loose with a clatter. There, he said. Motor mount's cracked. I can brace it. Will it work? It'll make a noise. Good fan or bad fan, somewhere between. They ate hamburgers from a gas station while the repaired cooler dropped from 58 degrees to 43. Eli wrote the temperature on the back of a paper bag every 15 minutes. At 38, Mara called Joni. I can take cheese, she said. Joni answered Thursday and hung up. Eli wiped ketchup from his thumb. Celebratory woman. She contains herself. A pair of headlights swept across the front windows. Wade's pickup turned into the lot. He entered without taking off his cap. His gaze moved from Eli to the dismantled trim, then settled on the cooler. What's this? A cooler, Mara said. I can see that. Then we're off to a strong start. Wade walked around it, inspecting the cord and the orange soda panel. You paid for this? Yes. With what? Money? His jaw shifted. I came to tell you we're disconnecting the main well tomorrow. Mara thought she had misheard him. We agreed to 90 days. There's a leak between the house and this building. We're losing pressure. So fix it. It's under the east field. I'm not digging up planted ground. You haven't planted. We start in the morning. Eli set down his hamburger. Mara did not look at him. The agreement says 90 days. It says reasonable access for up to 90 days. A major leak isn't reasonable. The sink wasn't leaking after Connor fixed it. Not the sink. The line. Show me. Wade's face closed. Mara, show me the leak. For 1 second, neither moved. Then Wade turned toward the door. 6:30, he said, before we take the tractor out. Mara followed him into the parking lot. And if there is one, you'll need another water source. By tomorrow, I can leave it on 48 hours. He climbed into his truck. The taillights disappeared toward the fields he had highlighted for himself. Behind Mara, the cooler's fan began to whine, steady and imperfect, preparing an empty glass box for food she had promised to accept. On the front counter, the $6 beneath the tractor cup suddenly seemed less like a beginning than a joke. At 6:20 the next morning, frost silvered the grass around the stand. Wade's tractor idled in the east field with its headlights on, throwing 2 pale tunnels through the mist. Mara crossed the ditch in rubber boots. Eli followed, carrying a shovel and a travel mug he had filled from the gas station. You didn't have to stay, she said. I was asleep upstairs. You were asleep in a chair. The chair was upstairs. You snore. The chair snores. Wade waited near the field's edge with Connor. Both wore work coats darkened at the shoulders from years of oil and rain. Connor held a flashlight, even though daylight had begun. There. Wade pointed. A patch of ground about 6 feet across had gone black and soft. Water shone between the flattened weeds. It was not dramatic. No fountain, no washed-out trench. Just a slow, undeniable wetness where the stand's buried line crossed from the farmhouse well. Mara crouched and pressed 2 fingers into the mud. How do you know it's mine? Wade stared at her. It could be drainage, she said. It hasn't rained in 8 days. Eli knelt beside her and scraped away grass with the shovel. After a few inches, water gathered in the shallow cut. Could be the line, he said. Could be, Wade repeated. You want certainty we dig. We're not digging. Then you get could be. Connor aimed his flashlight into the hole. Pump's been cycling every 9 minutes. Mara stood. Since when? Yesterday afternoon. Before or after Connor replaced my sink valve? Connor looked at Wade. Before, Wade said. Why didn't you tell me before? I did tell you. Last night, after you decided to disconnect it. Wade took off his cap and ran a hand through his hair. In the hard morning light, he looked older than 35. Gray showed at his temples. There was a raw place beside his thumb where he had peeled the skin away. We're trying to get seed in the ground, he said. The well supplies the house, the shop, and the chemical mixing station. I can't burn out a pump because you want to sell 3 apples. The apples sold. Fine, 6 apples, 12 pounds. Wade put his cap back on. This is exactly what I mean. Eli leaned on the shovel. You could sleeve the break. With what time? I could do it. And when it splits 10 feet farther down, we fix that one. Wade shook his head. That line's older than Mara. Dad should have replaced it 15 years ago. Dad should have done a lot of things, Mara said. The tractor engine changed pitch as it warmed. Its fuel cost money while they argued. Connor scuffed his boot through the grass. What if we run a temporary line along the ditch? Across the entrance, Wade said. So a truck crushes it? Under the culvert. We'd need 800 feet of rated pipe. I know how far the stand is. Then you know what it costs. Connor fell silent. Mara did not need to know the exact number. She could see it in the way both brothers avoided saying it. How long would a repair take? She asked Eli. If we find the break fast, couple hours, and how much? For a clamp? $20, maybe 40. Wade laughed once, without humor. And when it leaks again, who pays for the pump? I will, Mara said. With what? The question was reasonable. That made it cut deeper. Mara looked toward the stand. From here it seemed smaller than it did from the road. A faded brown box beneath the Bell's Roadside stand sign. The cooler's glass doors reflected the sunrise. Give me the 48 hours, she said. Wade's shoulders lowered, but only slightly. Then what? Then it won't be your problem. It was never. Connor turned on him. Don't. Wade stopped. Mara had rarely heard that tone from Connor. Neither apparently had Wade. The brothers stood facing each other over the wet patch, Connor pale and Wade suddenly still. Connor looked away first. Wade checked his watch. Friday, 6:30. I'm closing the valve at the house. He walked toward the tractor. Mara called after him. Are you still planning over the line? He turned. I'm planting my field. The tractor rolled forward, pulling the planter behind it. The first metal disc cut into the ground less than 10 yards from where they stood. Connor remained with Mara and Eli. You can use the hydrant at the lower barn, he said. Can she? Eli asked. Or are you going to think she knew when Wade locks it? Connor's face reddened. I'm offering. Mara pulled one boot free from the mud. For how long? As long as you need. Does Wade agree? It's my barn. But his pump. Connor looked back at the tractor moving across the field. I'll talk to him. That means no, Mara said. It means I'll talk to him. Tell him I'm not asking. She walked back toward the road. Eli caught up near the ditch. That was foolish, he said. I know. You need water. I know. He offered water. He offered a second thing Wade could take away. Eli stepped over the ditch. Also true. Inside, the cooler read 36 degrees. Mara opened it and felt cold air spill across her hands. 5 wire shelves waited behind the glass. She had wanted them so badly the night before. Now all she could see was how much there was to lose. Eli washed mud from the shovel in the utility sink while water still came freely. I know a brewery that gets syrup in food-grade drums, he said. 55 gallons, plastic. Beer syrup? Breweries use fruit concentrate. How do you know? I fix things. You fix their things or drink their things? Yes. Mara took out her legal pad. How many barrels? Depends what you're doing. Washing hands, cleaning counters, filling the restroom tank, maybe rinsing produce. No drinking. I'll buy drinking water. You're going to carry every gallon up those stairs? Mara pictured it and felt something in her lower back complain in advance. I could rig a pump, Eli said. Small pressure tank. Feed the sink from barrels. For how much? Here we go. For how much, Eli? He put the shovel aside. Used pump, hoses, fittings. Maybe 150 if I can scrounge. I have $6. You have 70 less than yesterday. I have $6 that are mine. He rubbed his chin. The brewery will give us the barrels. Why? Because they pay to get rid of them. I don't want to owe you. You won't. I already owe you 20. You owe Pete 300 and Joni a place to keep cheese cold. Prioritize your panic. She should have told him to leave. Instead, she wrote barrels, ELI beside the line where she tracked the cooler payment. Joni arrived at 10 with a battered red ice chest. You look cheerful, she said. My water's being cut off Friday. That's all you have? You want me to act surprised that Wade Bell chose corn over a person? He hasn't planted corn yet. Then there's hope for the corn. Joni opened the ice chest. Inside were 8 wax-wrapped rounds of cheese, 3 cheddar, 2 pepper jack, 2 smoked Gouda, and 1 labeled horseradish. Do not sniff close. Mara moved them into the glass cooler. Against the wide empty shelves, they looked like game pieces arranged before a very small war. $10 each to me, Joni said. You sell at 13. You said I could keep 2. I reconsidered your overhead. You don't know my overhead. I met your refrigerator. Mara wrote down every wheel, price, and date. Anything doesn't sell by next Thursday. I take it home, Joni said. Anything gets too warm. You call me before you start praying over it. 36 degrees. Good. Fan sounds like a trapped animal. Most machinery does. Joni bought a coffee at the gas station and sat behind the counter with Mara for 20 minutes, criticizing the way cars entered the lot. When Paula Hines came back for more apples and found none, Joni sold her a round of smoked Gouda. I only came for fruit, Paula protested. Cheese goes with fruit, Joni said. There isn't any fruit. Buy it in town. We're not a prison, Mara rang the sale. $3 went into an envelope marked stand. 10 went into another marked Joni. She had begun separating money after nearly giving Lena part of Pete's cooler payment. The envelopes lined the old office drawer in place of the dead pens. After Paula left, Joni nodded toward the register. There. Water money. $3 buys about half a gallon if it comes in a pretty bottle. Sell the other 7. By Thursday afternoon, Mara had sold 5. A handwritten sign beside the road announced cheese, though the wind kept folding it in half, so drivers saw only ESE. Lena brought 4 more baskets of apples, 3 jars of peach butter, and a crate of onions with soft necks. Hal delivered seed potatoes meant for someone named Gavin, and bought the horseradish cheese after Joni warned him not to. People came because they saw the sign, because Lena told them, or because they had an object to leave for someone else. They asked Mara to hold cash, gaskets, invoices, 2 empty milk cans, and a paper sack containing what Big Ray called the red parts. She wrote everything down. At closing, the stand's gross sales were $143. Mara's share was $31. It felt impressive until she placed 25 in Pete's envelope and 20 in the envelope for Eli. The arithmetic left her owing $9 more than she possessed. She stared at the columns until the numbers blurred. A truck pulled around back. Eli climbed out with 3 blue barrels strapped upright in the bed. Brewery only had these, he said. They smell like raspberry. I can't pay you. Good evening to you too. I sold food for 2 days and somehow have negative money. That's business. You've arrived. He lowered the tailgate. Mara helped roll the first barrel down the ramp. Even empty, it fought them. They rinsed each one until pink foam stopped spilling across the gravel. The sweet, fermented smell clung to Mara's clothes. Just before 6:30 Friday morning, Wade's pickup stopped at the farmhouse well. Mara stood at the utility sink with both taps open. The 3 barrels waited full along the back wall. 165 gallons she and Eli had hauled in 11 trips from the brewery's outdoor spigot. The pipes knocked, water thinned to a rope, then a string, then a bright thread twisting into the drain. For a moment, Mara heard her father scolding somebody for leaving the faucet running. Then the thread broke. The stand became quiet. Mara closed the taps, fitted Eli's hand pump into the first blue barrel, and began filling the sink 1 stroke at a time. The pump squeaked on every downward stroke. By the time Mara had enough water to rinse the sink, her shoulder ached. She washed the counter, filled a stainless steel dispenser for hand washing, and poured 2 gallons into the toilet tank upstairs. The barrel level had dropped farther than seemed fair. At 8, she turned the sign to open. At 8:10, Hal came in carrying a paper bag. You smell like a drunk raspberry, he said. Good morning. What happened to your water? She pointed toward the barrel. Hal inspected the hand pump. That's miserable. It's temporary. Most misery is. He took a biscuit from the bag and placed it on the counter. Mara narrowed her eyes. What? That's breakfast. I know what breakfast is. You keep saying that about ordinary things, because everybody keeps explaining them to me. Hal set down a second biscuit. One's mine. You don't eat sausage? I eat sausage. You told Dad sausage gave you heartburn. Your father gave me heartburn. He unwrapped one biscuit and ate it standing beside the onions. Mara opened hers after he looked away. Hal had come for the seed potatoes now filling half the office. Gavin, whoever he was, had failed to retrieve them. Mara found the line in her legal pad and tapped it. You said these were going to Grant Brothers. No, the first batch went to Grant. These are for Gavin Shaw. Why hasn't Gavin come? Because he thinks Tuesday lasts all week. Call him. Gavin don't answer. Then go to his place. I am at his place. This is my place. Exactly. Mara put down her biscuit. Hal, I can't be responsible for things forever because somebody leaves them here. They've been here one night. I have an alternator that has been here 4 days. I have red parts that nobody can identify. One of the milk cans has something living in the bottom. That'll be yeast. That does not improve it. Hal chewed thoughtfully. You want me to tell people to stop? The question surprised her. He sounded as if he would. Through the front glass, she could see the road, the ditch, and beyond them, Wade's east field. Long brown rows showed where the planter had passed. The tractor moved in the distance, too small to hear. No, she said. I want names and pickup dates. All right, and phone numbers. That work. That's ambitious. If Gavin doesn't collect by noon, the potatoes go outside. It may rain. Then Gavin will grow potatoes in his truck bed. Hal finished his biscuit. Your daddy never put things outside. My daddy had a cooler, a well, and 400 acres to lose things on. Hal folded the greasy wrapper into a neat square. Gavin Shaw, he said. Gray Ford. Beard like he lost a fight with a hedge. I'll get his number. He collected the crates before noon. The red parts remained. Then Mara began a new page in the legal pad. At the top, she wrote, drop-off rules. Beneath it, name, phone, owner, deadline. Nothing accepted without all 4. Lena read the page that afternoon. What if I don't know the phone? She asked. Then you don't leave the object. What if it belongs to someone who doesn't have a phone? Then you take it to them yourself. What if it is heavy, especially then? Lena smiled. Look at you, becoming disagreeable. I've always been disagreeable. No, you were quiet. People confuse those things. She had brought 8 jars of peach butter and 2 cases of late storage apples. Mara checked every jar, wrote the quantity, and made Lena initial the page. Your father never made me sign, Lena said. My father spent 40 years knowing where you lived. You know where I live. I know where your orchard is. You could be sleeping in the van. Only during harvest. Mara slid the pen toward her. Lena signed. A man entered carrying a wrench wrapped in a red shop rag. He was tall, narrow through the shoulders, and wore a seed company cap pulled low over his forehead. He stopped when he saw Lena. I'm not interrupting. Always, Lena said. We've adjusted. Mara recognized him after a moment. Nathan Cole grew vegetables on rented ground beyond Mercer's place. He came into the stand twice the previous summer and spoke so softly her father had accused him of whispering to the zucchini. Nathan set the wrench on the counter. Big Ray said, Small Ray left this. Mara looked toward the office. Are those the red parts? No. Those are for medium Ray. There's a medium Ray, not related. Lena bit the inside of her cheek. Mara found the legal pad entry for the wrench. I don't have this written down. Big Ray said it'd be here. Big Ray was mistaken. Nathan stared at the wrench as if it had betrayed him personally. You can take that one, Mara said, but it's going on the sheet. I didn't leave it. You're removing it. Oh, name, number, owner, deadline. Nathan gave her the information. His telephone number ended in 2 sevens. He watched her write it, then placed a $20 bill beside the pad. What's that? For the pepper starts. What pepper starts? Last year. Frank paid me for 2 flats and said he'd take it out of what I owed on booth sales. I don't think he did. He did. Nathan's eyebrows lifted. Mara remembered because she had been counting change when her father took $40 from the register, folded 2 20s together, and tucked them into Nathan's shirt pocket. Nathan had objected until her father said a man who grew habaneros had no business being timid. You were paid 40, Mara said. That was for the plants. Yes, this is for what he sold. He took his fee before he paid you. Nathan frowned. He did? I wrote the receipt. Do you have it? Probably not. Then you might be wrong. I'm not? He pushed the 20 closer. Take it until you're sure. I am sure. Lena pretended to study a jar label. Mara picked up the bill and pressed it back into Nathan's hand. You don't owe the stand. Nathan looked from the money to her face. You could use it. That does not make it mine. His hand closed around the bill. After he left, Lena said, You have $9 in your register. 34. 25 belongs to the sandwich man. You know about Pete? Everyone knows Pete. He made a good Reuben and charged too little. Mara gathered the peach butter into rows. I wasn't taking Nathan's money. I didn't ask you to. You were thinking loudly. I was thinking Frank told me once you remembered every number except your own worth. Mara set a jar down harder than necessary. Lena's expression did not change. When did he say that? Some summer. He was mad at you. What for? You wouldn't take a weekend off? I couldn't. Maybe that was why he was mad. Mara turned away. Dad had a poor way of showing concern. Yes. The simple agreement hurt more than a defense would have. Lena inspected the blue barrels. You can fill these at my packing shed. That's 12 miles each way. Closer than the brewery? What do you want for water? I have a well. So did I. Lena considered that. Bring back my empty crates without making me ask. That's not enough. Wash them first. Lena? Fine. Sell my peach butter and don't rearrange the labels. You always turn the peaches facing left. They look better, right? Mara looked at the jars. Every painted peach faced left. That is ridiculous. It disturbs customers. What customers? The ones you'll have when your peaches face right. Mara turned the jars. Lena nodded, satisfied. The next week settled into a rhythm that was not yet a routine. Mara drove to the orchard before sunrise for water, returned with the barrels sloshing hard enough to steer the truck on curves, and opened by 8. She learned to carry 2 5-gallon containers at once without striking her knees. She learned that 55 gallons lasted longer if customers did not use her restroom, though telling them no required more nerve than carrying water. She sold apples, onions, cheese, peach butter, and 3 bags of potatoes, Hal labeled eating, not planting, after Mara threatened him with the marker. Nathan brought bunches of green onions and spinach from a greenhouse he rented, then stood at the counter calculating prices on the back of his hand. Mara gave every farmer a separate page. She wrote what came in, what sold, what spoiled, and what left. At closing, she divided cash into envelopes and put her own percentage last. Some days her percentage was $11. Once it was $43. People began calling. They called to ask what was available, whether Joni would bring more smoked Gouda, whether Lena's peach butter contained sugar, whether Mara could hold a carburetor until Saturday. They called because they had forgotten Hal's number, or because they remembered the stand's number and assumed Mara knew everyone else's. She usually did. The telephone rang upstairs at 11:40 one night. Mara woke with the receiver against her cheek and no memory of picking it up. "This Mara?" a man asked. "No." There was a pause. "Is Mara there?" "She died." Another pause. Mara opened her eyes. "Who is this?" "Gavin." She sat up. A logging truck thundered past, shaking the tractor cup on the sill. "Gavin Shaw, Hal said you got seed potatoes. Hal collected them 6 days ago. He was bringing them here. Then call Hal. He don't answer, neither do I." "You just did." Mara hung up. At 6 the next morning, she found a truck parked beside the stand. Gavin Shaw was asleep behind the wheel, with his bearded face tipped toward the window. Mara knocked on the glass. He woke violently and hit the horn. "I need my potatoes," he said after lowering the window. "I don't have them," Hal said. Mara held up the rules sheet. Gavin squinted at it. "What's that?" "The reason I am not going to spend my life standing between men who won't answer their phones." He read the list, lips moving. "All 4? He asked. "All 4. What if it's perishable? Then the deadline is short. What if somebody has an emergency? Then it had better be theirs." Gavin rubbed his beard. Frank never cared. Mara glanced at the dark windows of the stand, the blue barrels waiting to be refilled, and the cooler humming behind them. "Frank had a daughter," she said. She left Gavin in the lot and carried the empty water containers to her truck. At the orchard, Lena's well ran cold and fast. Mara filled one barrel, then another, watching the numbers rise on the meter she had insisted Lena install for her use. Halfway through the third, Mara's hands began to shake. She turned off the water and sat on an overturned crate. The packing shed smelled of wood, dust, and the last sweet trace of autumn apples. Nobody was there to see her press both palms to her face. Her phone rang. Mara lowered her hands and answered. Joni did not say hello. Restaurant in Danville wants 30 wheels by Friday, she said. You able to hold them? Mara looked at the barrels, her swollen knuckles, and the morning light creeping across the concrete. Yes, she said. Bring them. Joni arrived 2 hours later, with 6 ice chests and no sympathy. You look awful, she said. Thank you. I mean, tired. I knew what you meant. Together they carried 30 waxed wheels into the stand. Joni had labeled each by hand, her block lettering becoming angrier as she worked. The first cheddar said, Pike Dairy, aged cheddar. The final one said, cheddar. Eat it. Mara arranged them on the cooler shelves and counted twice. Who ordered these? She asked. Calvin Ross. Owns the Blue Thistle. Mara knew the restaurant. It occupied a converted railroad depot in Danville and served food on heavy white plates with green leaves placed where nobody expected to eat them. What's he doing with 30 wheels? Private dinner, some company from Richmond. Did he pay a deposit? Joni closed the cooler door. Did he? He's bought from me before. That wasn't the question. No. Mara took out the legal pad. Price? 12 per wheel to me. He pays 16. Last week you charged me 10. Those were little. They look the same size. They're emotionally larger. Joni, 12. You keep 4. He picks up Friday at noon. Mara calculated quickly. $480 total. $360 belonged to Joni. $120 could cover 4 payments to Pete, another water barrel, and something besides gas station food. The number made her nervous enough to check the cooler temperature. 37 degrees. Call him, Mara said. Why? Confirm. He confirmed yesterday. Confirm again. Joni pulled out her phone. You think very highly of yourself for someone who stores water like a siege is coming, Calvin answered on the third ring. Joni put him on speaker. Friday at noon, Mara said after introducing herself. 30 wheels from Pike Dairy at $16 each. That's right, you're picking up here. That's what Joni said. You'll pay when you collect. I generally do. I'm writing it down. The pause on his end lasted just long enough to contain an opinion. Then I suppose it's official, Calvin said. Joni ended the call. Mara wrote confirmed and underlined it. You want him to sign in, Blood? Joni asked. Blood's hard to file. Your father did business on handshakes. My father knew where people lived. Joni considered that, then touched the cooler door with 2 fingers. Call me if anything changes. Nothing's going to change. That's what people say when daring the Lord. By Thursday, Mara had checked the temperature so often she could predict the display before it settled. The fan shrieked at startup, rattled for 30 seconds, then quieted into a steady hum. Eli had told her the brace would hold. She trusted his repair more than she trusted Pete's wiring, Pete's cooler, or Calvin's appetite for cheese. At 9 Thursday night, the stand phone rang. Mara was upstairs eating canned soup from the saucepan she had unpacked. She caught the receiver on the 4th ring. This is Calvin Ross. She looked down at the half-eaten soup. What changed? The company canceled the dinner. The company canceled, or you did. They canceled. Some trouble with their board. You still ordered the cheese. I ordered it for their event. From Joni. Through me. I understand this creates difficulty. Mara set the saucepan on the floor. Difficulty is when the sign blows over. This is $480 of cheese. It's cheese, Ms. Bell. It keeps. Not forever. Not in a cooler with a fan motor making animal noises. Not when Joni had spent money on milk, cultures, wax, labels, and labor. Because 2 people had told her, yes. You confirmed. And I'm letting you know as soon as I know. Are you paying? Calvin exhaled. I can take 6 wheels for regular service. 30 were ordered. I don't need 30. Neither do I. The words came out louder than Mara intended. Below her, the cooler compressor kicked on. The vibration traveled through the floorboards. Calvin's voice softened. I'm sorry. Sorry had no place in the envelopes. When can you take the 6? She asked. Early next week. No, tomorrow. I'll see what I can do. You'll do noon, like we agreed. He hesitated. Noon. After the call, Mara remained seated on the edge of the bed. Soup cooled beside her boot. The tractor cup stood on the sill above the $6 bill she had never spent. She called Joni. "I heard," Joni said. "How?" "Calvin called me first." "And you didn't call me?" "I was going to." "When?" "When I knew whether you were crying or making telephone calls." Mara stood. "Why would I cry?" "You sound like somebody asked why water is wet. I can sell 24 wheels by tomorrow." "All right." "You don't believe me. I believe you said it. That's not the same." "No." Mara waited for Joni to tell her what to do. Joni waited longer. "Who buys your cheese?" Mara asked. "People with money and mouths, names." Joni gave her 7. Mara called everyone. A wine shop took 2 wheels of Gouda, but wanted 30 days to pay. Mara said no. A bed and breakfast owner took 3 cheddars if Mara delivered before breakfast. A diner outside Easton agreed to buy 4 pepper jacks after Mara reminded the manager that she had once ordered Joni's cheese through the stand. The manager reminded Mara that it had been 2 years earlier. Mara said cheese did not become less useful with time. At 11:30, she called Lena. "No," Lena said. "I haven't asked anything. You need money, water, or my van. I need customers. Worse. Who buys cheese in quantity? Restaurants. One just abandoned me. Church kitchens. At midnight, there'll still be churches in the morning." Lena gave her 3 numbers. 2 went to voicemail. A woman named Estelle Boone answered on the 5th ring and listened without interrupting. "We make Friday suppers at Mount Olive," Estelle said. "Macaroni, biscuits, whatever people order ahead." "How much cheese do you use?" "Depends who's cooking. Ruth uses too much." "Is Ruth cooking tomorrow?" "I am Ruth." Mara closed her eyes. Estelle laughed. "How much you got?" 21 wheels that are not already promised." "What kinds?" By midnight, Mount Olive had agreed to take 5 cheddars and 2 pepper jacks at $14 each. Mara's commission shrank, but Joni would receive her full price. "That leaves 14, Mara said. 13, Joni replied over the phone. "Calvin's taking 6, not 5. I counted his 6. Then I counted Mount Olive wrong." They argued over the arithmetic until Joni drove to the stand wearing flannel pajama pants beneath her farm coat. "You were counting the Gouda twice," she said, pointing at the legal pad. "You labeled 2 of them smoked and 1 smoke. Same thing. Words mean things. Not at midnight." Joni sat behind the counter while Mara called every diner within 40 miles. Most were closed. 1 answered because the owner was doing payroll. He bought 3 if Mara would take payment in 10 days. "No," Mara said. Joni reached for the phone. Mara turned away. 5 days, the diner owner offered. Cash on delivery. "Lady, I haven't seen your cheese. It isn't my cheese. That inspires confidence." She sold him 2. At 1 in the morning, Eli knocked on the glass. Mara unlocked the door. "Who called you?" "Lena." "What did she say?" "That cheese was trying to kill you." Joni raised 1 hand from behind the counter. "Accurate?" Eli carried in a thermos of coffee and a paper sack of sandwiches. He listened while Mara explained, then walked to the cooler. "Temperature's good. Calvin canceled 30 wheels." "Can you return them?" Joni stared at him. "What?" Eli asked. "That is milk," she said. "Not a shirt." "Right." Mara took a sandwich and bit into it without tasting. "We have 11 left." 10, Joni said. "Why does the number keep changing?" "Because you just sold 1 to Eli." "I did?" Eli looked between them. "Apparently. You're paying $16. I don't even like cheese." 17. He handed her a 20. "Keep the change if you stop yelling." At 7, Mara and Joni loaded the sold wheels into ice chests. Eli drove because Mara's hand shook when she tried to fit the key into her truck's ignition. They delivered to the bed and breakfast first. The owner came to the kitchen door in a robe and counted every wheel while complaining that 1 label was crooked. At Mount Olive, Estelle Boone turned out to be a broad-shouldered woman with a silver braid and a laugh that made the stainless steel counters seem friendly. She paid cash and bought an extra Gouda after Joni sliced a sample with a pocket knife. "Ruth cooking?" Mara asked. Estelle winked. "Always." The Easton diner took 4. The wine shop sent an employee to meet them with cash after Mara refused the invoice again. By 11:30, only Calvin's 6 and 2 unclaimed cheddars remained. Calvin arrived at 12:15 in a black utility vehicle. He wore a fitted blue shirt and the careful expression of a man approaching an injured dog. I said noon, Mara told him. I brought cash. That improves $12.15. He counted out $96. Mara counted it again. Look, he said, I genuinely am sorry. If I had room, you have room. You don't have a use. His mouth tightened. Fine. Joni, standing beside the cooler, said, Calvin. He looked at her. Don't punish honesty because it arrived wearing bad manners. Mara turned. Whose side are you on? Mine. Calvin glanced at the two remaining cheddars. I'll take those too. You don't have to, Mara said. No, but I can use them for lunch service. He paid for 8 and carried the box to his vehicle. When he was gone, the cooler shelves stood empty except for 3 regular sale wheels Joni had brought separately. Mara added the totals. Every ordered cheese had sold. Joni received all $360. Mara's commission, reduced by discounts and increased by the extra sales, came to $94. She put $25 into Pete's envelope, $20 into Eli's, and the rest into Stand. Joni watched her divide the bills. You did well, she said. Mara's eyes burned from lack of sleep. Calvin still walked away, with 8 wheels. He should have taken 30, he should have, he didn't. You had cheese, not justice. That sounds like something Dad would say. Your father would have let Calvin pay next month and complained until Christmas. Mara closed the drawer. Then Dad would have been wrong. Joni smiled faintly. Sometimes he was. Through the window, Wade's tractor crossed the field in a straight green haze of dust. A white pickup waited near the entrance to the farm, its door painted with fresh black lettering. Bell Family Farms. Mara read it twice. The words on her old roadside sign suddenly felt less like a name than something her brothers had allowed her to borrow. Wade climbed down from the tractor when he saw Mara crossing the road. The white pickup belonged to a fertilizer salesman. He stood beside it holding a clipboard, while Connor examined a sample bag near the tailgate. The lettering on the door was crisp enough to shine. Wade wiped his hands on a rag. You need something? Who's the family? The salesman glanced from Mara to Wade, then became deeply interested in his sample bag. Wade folded the rag. What? Bell Family Farms. Which family? Ours. Mine too? You don't grow grain. That isn't what I asked. Connor set the sample down. It's just the business name. You had lettering made before Dad's grave settled. Wade's face tightened. We had to put an operating name on the accounts. And Bell Farm wasn't enough? There are 3 Bell Farms in the state, so you added family and removed me. The salesman cleared his throat. I can come back. No need, Wade said. Strongly disagree, the salesman replied, and got into his pickup. Connor watched him drive away. He had the soil amendments. He'll return, Wade said. People return when you owe them money. Mara looked toward the farmhouse. A new white sign stood near the lane, the same black lettering visible against Wade's planted field. Below the name, smaller words read, Grain and Contract Production. You couldn't tell me? She asked. I didn't think I needed your permission. You didn't. Then what are we doing? Mara hated the question because she did not know. She had crossed the road on no sleep, full of cheese fumes and anger, as if Wade had stolen something she could point to on the county map. He glanced at the old stand sign across the road. We do need to talk about your name, he said. My name? The stand's name. Customers are already confusing your retail sales with our operation. What customers? A restaurant called about cheese yesterday. Then send them to me. We don't want our business associated with food handling. We don't control. Mara stared at him. You mean my stand. I mean liability. You mean the place Dad called Bell's Roadside Stand for 32 years. And Dad owned the farm attached to it. Now the properties are separate. Connor stepped between them without quite stepping between them. Could put a line under the sign. Independently operated or something. Whose side is that supposed to help? Mara asked. Both? Wade tucked the rag into his back pocket. Call it Mara's Market. That's a good name. I don't want a good name. What do you want? The one I kept. She turned back toward the road. Wade called after her. You don't get to make every business decision personal. Mara faced him from the ditch. You made my family a business decision. A truck horn sounded. She stepped out of the road as Hal passed between them, raising 2 fingers from the steering wheel. His head swiveled from Mara to Wade and back with open curiosity. By the time Mara returned to the stand, Joni had sold a cheddar to a man looking for directions to the interstate. Didn't need cheese, Joni said. Needed character. Mara went into the office and pulled the blue folder from the bottom desk drawer. The agreement contained 3 references to the stand sign. She read each one. Nothing said she had to change it. Nothing said she was part of Bell Family Farms. She put the papers back. Joni stood in the doorway. You planning to eat today? I had half a sandwich. At what hour? I don't know. That is not an hour. Mara looked at the envelopes lined in the drawer. Take your money. Already did. Then why are you here? Joni's mouth flattened. Mara regretted it before the words finished leaving. She lowered her head. I'm sorry. I am. I know. Still unpleasant. Joni went to the cooler, took out the horseradish cheese Eli had apparently failed to remove, and cut a thick wedge. She put it between 2 pieces of bread from Lena's latest delivery. Eat. Mara obeyed because arguing required more strength than chewing. The fields greened behind the stand. Thin corn rows stitched Wade's ground into order. Connor's river tract stayed bare longer where water collected, then showed soybeans in uneven patches. At the orchard, white blossoms fell and tiny hard peaches appeared beneath the leaves. Inside the stand, empty shelves became harder to find. Nathan brought spinach, green onions, radishes, and the first greenhouse tomatoes, apologizing for each price as though he had invented inflation. Hal sent potatoes and jars of honey belonging to his cousin. Lena added bread from a retired nurse named Bernice, who signed Mara's drop-off sheet with the suspicion of someone entering a mortgage. Mara sold what arrived. When something did not sell, she called people. The calls worked too well. A diner wanted 15 pounds of spinach every Monday. The bed and breakfast wanted eggs, bread, apples when available, and something local for the fruit plate, which meant Mara had to guess what wealthy visitors considered local enough to admire. Mount Olive ordered cheese twice and onions once. Calvin bought 4 tomatoes and behaved as if neither of them remembered the 30-wheel disaster. Mara kept every request on loose sheets clipped above the desk. She wrote Monday in red, Thursday in blue, and will call in black. Within 2 weeks, the wall looked like it had developed a fever. On a Monday morning, Nathan arrived with the diner's spinach at the same moment Bernice came for payment. Lena unloaded bread, and Big Ray demanded the red parts that Medium Ray had already collected. Medium Ray took them, Mara said. They're mine. He said they were his. He thinks all red parts are his. Then why did you leave them without your name? I told Frank. Frank is dead. The room went quiet. Big Ray took off his cap. Mara closed her eyes. I'm sorry. No, he said. You're right. Behind him, Nathan set down the spinach crates and slipped toward the door. Mara saw him. Wait, I need weights. I wrote them. Where? On the crate. Lena lifted the crate. The bottom was wet, and Nathan's numbers had bled into a green blur. Guessing is traditional, she said. I'm not guessing. The stand phone rang. Bernice cleared her throat. Big Ray wanted to know where Medium Ray lived. The diner's driver pulled into the lot and began honking because another truck blocked the entrance. Mara answered the phone, waved at the driver, tried to weigh spinach, and knocked Bernice's envelope behind the register. For 10 minutes, everyone spoke at once. Then Bernice said, My money isn't right. The stand went quiet again. Mara counted the envelope. It was $30 short. I put 112 in here. There's 82. Mara checked the sales page, the register, and every other envelope. Nothing. I'll replace it, she said. With whose money? Mine. Do you have $30? Mara did. It was supposed to pay Pete. Bernice folded her arms. I'm not accusing you. You don't have to. I'm saying the system's poor. The word struck harder than thief would have. Mara took 30 from stand and put it into Bernice's envelope. Bernice counted, signed the page, and left with her mouth set. At closing, Mara found the missing bills stuck beneath the register drawer. They had slid through a split in the wood. She sat on the floor and laughed once. It turned into a sound she did not recognize. Eli found her there 20 minutes later, holding 3 tens against her forehead. He looked around. Robbing yourself? Efficient? No getaway car. He crouched beside her. What happened? Mara told him. Not only about Bernice, about Big Ray and Medium Ray, the diner driver, the spinach, the phone, the envelopes, the water run she had missed that morning, and the restaurant order she still needed to assemble before dawn. Eli listened without interrupting. That made her angrier. Say something. You need fewer jobs. I have one job. You have everybody's job. They rely on the stand. They rely on you saying yes. That's how this works. Is it? She pushed herself up. You wouldn't understand. Eli remained crouched. I work for 3 cousins who call any time a tractor sneezes. I understand. Then you know people need help. I know needing help is not the same as owning all your hours. Mara put the money back into the drawer. I can handle it. You're out of water, there's cheese on the bread shelf, and you wrote Call Diner on your hand upside down. She looked at her palm. It did say Call Diner. Upside down depended on who was reading. Trust isn't the same as endless forgiveness, Eli said, and it isn't the same as making yourself so useful nobody can leave. The office seemed to narrow around them. You left, she said. Eli's face changed. Mara wanted to stop, but exhaustion had removed the part of her that knew how. You stopped coming, she said, so maybe usefulness was all I had. I stopped asking you to dinner. You stopped everything. You had a mother who was sick and a father who acted insulted by mortality. Every time I came over, you gave me a broken appliance. You liked fixing things. I liked you. The refrigerator motor clicked off. Somewhere in the shelves, a jar lid settled with a small metallic pop. Eli stood. I liked you, he repeated. You made that into another chore. He walked out before Mara could answer. The next morning, she removed every loose sheet from the office wall. She put a table beside the register and laid out 4 clean forms: Monday delivery, Thursday delivery, retail consignment, and temporary pickup. Drop-offs would happen during posted hours. Every farmer would pay a small share toward refrigeration and water. Every sale, fee, and loss would be visible. Lena read the new rules first. You're charging me $12 a week, she said. If you use 2 shelves, what if I use 1? 6? What if my peaches face right? Still 6. Hal objected because objecting was his preferred way to study information. Joni paid before Mara asked. Nathan read the page twice and said the fee was too low. Bernice arrived with bread and placed $30 on the counter. What's this? Mara asked. Refrigeration. Bread doesn't need refrigeration. Then use it to fix the register drawer. Mara looked at her. Bernice looked back. A poor system can improve. By Friday, every farmer had signed. Mara took down the wind-bent cardboard sign beside the road and replaced it with a painted board Eli left silently against the back door. Local food from local farms, it read. She hung it beneath Bell's roadside stand. The paint was still tacky along the L. Mara ran her thumb near it without touching. Eli had used exterior board, sealed the edges, and drilled 2 holes exactly where the lower hooks hung beneath the old sign. He had measured. He had not left a note. For 3 days he did not answer Mara's calls. On the 4th, she called from the stand telephone instead of her cell. Grant Repair, he said. You don't have a repair company. I could. You'd need to answer your phone. I just did. Mara looked through the front window at the board, moving slightly in the breeze. The sign is good. Glad it fit. You measured. I've grown. I owe you for materials. No, you don't. Eli. Mara. A customer came in, and the bell above the door struck twice because one of its screws was loose. I shouldn't have said what I said, Mara told him. No, I was tired. That explains it. It doesn't excuse it. No. She waited. You could make this easier. I have before. The customer, a man selecting onions, suddenly became fascinated by the root ends. Mara lowered her voice. Can I buy you dinner? Eli was quiet long enough that the man put down his onion and chose another one. You asking me somewhere? Eli said, or offering payment for the sign. Somewhere. Where? I don't know. Somewhere that has plates. That narrows it. And food. Now we're getting somewhere. Tonight? I'm replacing Hal's hydraulic hose tonight. Tomorrow? My cousin's tractor will have developed a fatal emotional condition by then. Eli. He laughed softly. Sunday. 7. When Mara hung up, the customer placed 3 onions on the counter. Good onions, he said. You listened to that whole conversation. I was shopping. You have squeezed every onion in the crate. I'm particular. He bought 6. The new system made people grumble, but it also made them arrive when they said they would. On Monday mornings, Nathan backed his truck to the rear doors at 7:30, with weighed crates and invoices Mara could read. On Thursdays, Joni delivered cheese between 9 and 10, then stayed until 11, explaining to customers why they were choosing the wrong kind. Lena refused to obey the schedule on principle. She arrived Wednesdays at 6, Fridays at noon, and once on a Sunday evening with 32 baskets of early peaches. "Those aren't on the sheet," Mara said. "Peaches don't read. The shelves are full. Move the onions. Onions can't go in the sun. Onions have seen sun. You signed the rules." Lena placed another basket on the counter. The peaches were small, yellow-pink, and fragrant enough to fill the room. "Fine," Mara said. "One shelf. $6 fee. Put me down for 2. You said move the onions." I reconsidered their rights. Mara laughed before she could stop herself. The rules did more than organize drop-offs. The farmer's fees paid Pete on time, kept fuel in Mara's truck, and bought a second-hand stainless steel sorting table from a closed cafeteria. Hal and Eli hauled it in on a Tuesday, arguing about which door to use until Joni threatened to butter the narrow one and push them through. Mara stopped putting her own share last. She paid the farmers, paid the stand, then paid herself a fixed amount each week. The first Friday, she placed $200 in an envelope marked Mara. She left it untouched until Sunday because spending it felt like stealing. At 7 that evening, Eli picked her up for dinner. He wore a blue button-down shirt with a dark smudge near one cuff. Mara wore a green dress that had belonged to her mother and caught herself checking the cooler temperature before she locked the door. "Don't," Eli said from the lot. "I didn't do anything. You turned back?" "I was looking at the sign. The sign knows its lines. They drove to a barbecue restaurant 2 towns over." The menus were laminated and the plates were made of actual china, satisfying Mara's stated requirements. For the first 20 minutes, they discussed safe things. Hal's hydraulic hose, Pete Darnell's campaign to convince people he had retired voluntarily, Joni's horseradish cheese. Eli told her his cousins had finally offered him a formal partnership. "You going to take it?" she asked. "Maybe." "You hate working for them. I hate working for everybody at least once a week. That seems fair. They're good mechanics, bad planners, worse listeners. Why stay?" Eli turned his water glass between his hands. "They call." Mara looked at him. He smiled without humor. "I heard it." The waitress brought ribs, collard greens, and cornbread. Mara's phone rang before she picked up her fork. She checked the screen. Nathan. Eli said nothing. She silenced it. The phone rang again. Mara turned it face down. "What if something happened?" she asked. Something always happened. It could be produce-related. He is a grown man who raises habaneros. Let him face danger. She lasted until dessert, before checking the voicemail. Nathan had wanted to know whether 20 bunches of kale would be too many for Monday. Mara called him back from the parking lot. Eli leaned against his truck, watching moths strike the restaurant light. "Too many?" Nathan asked. "No." "Bring 12. You sure?" "No." "Bring 12 anyway." When she hung up, Eli held out his hand. Mara thought he wanted the phone. Instead, he took her fingers. It was such a small thing that she almost ruined it by apologizing. The stand grew louder as summer deepened. Cars crunched over gravel from morning until near dark. Ceiling fans pushed warm air around, carrying the smells of peaches, bread, onions, and tomatoes. Mara hired no one because she could not yet promise wages. But the farmers began doing pieces of work when they were there. Lena restocked fruit. Joni wiped cooler shelves. Nathan carried boxes to customers' cars, then fled if they tried to tip him. A woman named Dana Mills came in on a Thursday wearing a little fork grocery apron and bought one of everything. She returned the following week with a clipboard. "I need a reliable local shelf," Dana said. "Not decorative, reliable." What does decorative food do? Arrives for photographs and disappears when tourists go home. Dana owned 2 small grocery stores, one in Easton and one beyond Danville. The larger chains took most of her customers' weekly spending, but people still came to Little Fork for meat, produce, and things with names attached. "I can use 40 mixed produce boxes a week," she said. "Greens, tomatoes, onions, fruit when it's ready, cheese separately." Mara looked at the number. No single grower using the stand could fill that order consistently. "I'll have to ask them. I'd worry if you didn't." "Payment?" "Every Friday after delivery." No 30 days. I said every Friday. Returns? Quality problems only, not because customers change their minds. Price changes? We agree by Tuesday. Dana smiled. You enjoy this. I enjoy knowing what people mean. Mara called a meeting for Monday evening. Hal arrived 20 minutes early and complained no one else was punctual. Lena arrived 2 minutes late and accused him of moving her chair. Joni brought cheese nobody had requested. Nathan stood until Mara told him twice to sit. They spread Dana's proposed order across the sorting table. I can do tomatoes and peppers, Nathan said. Not 40 boxes every week, Hal replied. I didn't say every week. Reliable means every week. It can mean reliably honest when I don't have them. Lena tapped the paper. My peaches start heavy in 10 days. Apples later. Fruit is covered. What if hail comes? Joni asked. Then I'll send hail. They worked through every line. Nathan would supply greens, tomatoes, and peppers. Hal could handle potatoes and supplement onions. Lena would supply fruit. 2 other growers Mara knew through the stand could cover gaps. Joni's cheese would be invoiced separately. And the stand? Nathan asked. Combines the order, checks quality, packs boxes, handles payment. What's your fee? Lena asked. Mara told them. Hal shook his head. Too low. That's what I said, Nathan murmured. You always say that, Mara replied. Because it usually is. They raised Mara's packing fee by $1 per box over her objection. The first Little Fork order filled the stand's back room. Mara and Nathan sorted spinach at dawn, while Lena wrapped peaches in paper, and Joni rejected tomatoes for moral defects visible only to her. Hal arrived with potatoes in fertilizer sacks and was forced to repack them because Dana did not want groceries labeled nitrogen 46-0-0. Eli drove the loaded flatbed to Easton. Dana inspected 4 random boxes, signed the invoice, and paid on Friday exactly as promised. The next order increased to 50. For the first time, the stand was doing something none of the farms could have done alone. Not charity, not favors traded vaguely until someone forgot. Work with names, prices, and dates. Mara pinned the first paid Little Fork invoice above the office desk. That afternoon, Lena came in carrying a peach branch. The leaves curled at their edges. Brown freckles stippled the new fruit. One side of the branch looked burned. What happened? Mara asked. Ask your brother. Mara touched a damaged leaf. Spray? Wind was out of the west yesterday. Wade's crew treated the field beside my boundary. Did you call him? He said his applicator stayed inside the markers. Could it have come from somewhere else? Lena's eyes hardened. Would you like to ask that again? No. Outside, a grain truck carrying the Bell family farm's name passed the stand and turned toward Wade's lane. Mara called him. He answered over machinery noise. What? I have Lena here. Good for you. She has damage in the east orchard. I heard. She says spray drifted from your field. She says lots of things. Lena held out her hand for the phone. Mara kept it. Did you go look? Mara asked. I sent Connor. What did he say? That some leaves are spotted. From your spray? No way to know. Ortiz doesn't maintain a clean boundary. Weeds carry disease. Lena could hear him. Her face went still. Mara lowered her voice. Don't do that. Do what? Turn her orchard into the reason you damaged it. I didn't damage anything. You don't know because you didn't look. I'm working, Mara. So is she. Wade hung up. Lena took the branch and walked out without speaking. Mara found Connor at the lower barn that evening. He was repairing a planter gauge beneath a work light. Was it drift? She asked. He kept turning the wrench. Could have been. Could have been disease. No. Did you tell Wade? The wrench stopped. Connor looked at her from beneath the machinery. I told him the wind changed. And? He said the applicator should have watched it. Then why is he blaming Lena? Connor slid out on the concrete. Behind him, the barn held stacks of seed, chemical tanks, and machinery carrying more debt than Mara wanted to imagine. Because replacing trees costs money, he said. So does killing them. I know. Mara waited. Connor wiped his hands on his shirt. I'll talk to him. You always say that. His face flinched before it closed. Mara left him beneath the bright work light, surrounded by everything he had inherited and nothing he was willing to risk. Connor did talk to Wade, Mara knew because Wade came into the stand the next morning, angry enough to ignore the peaches. Lena was pricing jars at the sorting table. Nathan stood near the cooler with a crate of tomatoes, and two customers browsed bread along the front wall. Wade held a little fork produce box against his hip. Bell's roadside stand was stamped on both sides. "You're using the family name on wholesale shipments," he said. Mara set down her marker. "Good morning. I asked you about this. You told me you didn't want your grain operation associated with my food." "Exactly. This says roadside stand. Your truck says grain. Customers don't study punctuation. Neither of those names has punctuation." Lena covered a smile with her hand. Wade put the box on the counter. "Dana Mills called our office about a missing invoice, because Connor gave her this number as the roadside stand. I gave her the right number after she called the wrong one," Connor said from the doorway. Mara had not seen him enter. Wade turned. "You told me she got it from the lettering." "No, you told yourself." Connor's voice remained mild, but he did not look away. Wade's face flushed. "We're busy enough without sorting your calls." "Then don't," Mara said. "Tell people there are two separate businesses. I've been trying to do that, with one called Bell Family Farms. It is our family's farm." Lena placed a jar on the table. The glass struck stainless steel with a clean, hard sound. Wade noticed her for the first time. "Lena," he said. "Wade, I was coming by. Were you?" "I talked to the applicator. They stayed within the marked field." Connor saw the drift. Connor looked at Mara, then at the damaged peach branch Lena had left beside the register. "I saw the wind carrying mist toward the orchard," he said. Wade's jaw tightened. "You saw mist. That doesn't prove what caused those spots." "The western row is burned," Lena said. "Only the western row, only the side facing your field. You've got weeds 6 feet high along that boundary. Those are pollinator plants. Those are weeds with public relations." One customer quietly put her bread back. Lena's hands flattened against the sorting table. "I lost fruit. I may lose young trees. You don't know that. I've grown peaches for 38 years, and I've sprayed crops for 15. "No," Wade said. "You hired somebody to spray." Mara did not realize she had spoken until everybody looked at her. Wade gave a short laugh. "Here we go." "Go look at the trees," Mara said. "If you're right, you lose an hour. If she's right, you owe her." "I don't owe her because Connor saw fog." "Mist," Connor said. Wade swung toward him. "Would you stop helping?" Connor's face went pale, but his voice did not soften. "I'm answering." For several seconds, the only sound was the cooler fan winding down. Wade picked up the empty produce box. The boundary was poorly maintained. If anything drifted, it's because weeds made it impossible to see the markers. Lena stared at him. There it was. Not denial exactly. Permission for the damage to belong to the person who suffered it. "Get out," Mara said. Wade looked at her. "This is family business." "No, you made sure of that." He left with the box. Connor remained near the door. Lena began arranging jars again, one by one, though they were already straight. "I'll pay for an arborist to inspect the row," Connor said. "With whose money?" she asked. "Mine." "You inherited river ground, not a conscience." The words landed. Lena closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was cheap." Connor nodded. "Still might be true." She looked at him then. "Have someone inspect it," he said. "Send the bill to me." He followed Wade outside. Nathan lifted the tomato crate onto the scale. 12 pounds, he said softly. Mara looked toward the front wall. The customer who had returned the bread was leaving empty-handed. For the rest of the day, everyone spoke more quietly. The stand continued growing because crops did not pause for family shame. Peaches softened, tomatoes reddened, green beans arrived in bushel baskets, hot from the field. The Little Fork order reached 60 boxes, then stayed there because Mara refused Dana's request for 80. "Reliable," Mara reminded her. Dana nodded, worth asking. And Mara bought an old chest freezer from Little Fork's Easton storeroom for $120. Its lid was dented, and someone had written, "Brenda's do not touch" across the side in permanent marker. Dana claimed Brenda had moved to Ohio. Joni claimed Brenda was hiding in Danville from a tax preparer. The freezer let Mara add bags of Lena's sliced peaches, Nathan's shelled beans, frozen berries from 2 hill farms, and sweet corn that Hal cut off the cob while complaining that customers ought to possess teeth. By late August, every shelf held something. The stand's back room had become a packing area with labeled bins and clean tables. Mara replaced the cardboard rules with printed sheets inside plastic sleeves. She bought a used adding machine, paid Eli in full, and finished paying Pete 3 weeks early. Pete came to collect his final $25 and stood before the glass cooler. "Fan still sounds bad," he said. "It sounds paid for. Best sound there is." Mara started a reserve envelope. She put $50 into it each Friday. The first time it reached $500, she carried it upstairs and hid it beneath the sewing basket, then brought it back down because the office drawer was where business money belonged. She slept 6 hours some nights. Eli took her to dinner twice more. Once she left her phone in his truck. The second time, she brought it inside, but did not answer when it rang. Progress, he called it. The failure came on a Wednesday morning, with no warning except silence. Mara knew something was wrong before she reached the bottom stair. The building was never silent. Even before opening, the glass cooler hummed, the chest freezer clicked, and the white refrigerator shuddered like an old dog dreaming. That morning, nothing ran. She crossed the sales floor barefoot and saw darkness behind the cooler glass. Its display was blank. The chest freezer lid felt warm. "No," Mara whispered. She opened it. Air rose carrying the sweet, damp smell of thawed fruit. Bags of peaches slumped together. Purple juice seeped from berry packages and pooled in the bottom. The corn was soft. Water dripped from the lid seal. Mara touched a bag near the center, completely thawed. The breaker panel in the office showed the rear circuit tripped. She reset it. A blue spark snapped behind the chest freezer, followed by a sharp, burnt smell. The breaker tripped again. Mara yanked the freezer plug from the wall and called Eli. He arrived in 12 minutes, hair uncombed, shirt button wrong near the collar. "How long?" he asked. "I don't know." He checked temperatures without offering reassurance. The glass cooler had reached 52 degrees. The freezer products were warmer. "Can the cheese be saved?" Joni decides. "The vegetables? Mara, can they?" "Some, maybe. Not for regular sale." She pressed both hands to the top of the cooler. "I checked everything at 9 last night. That gives us a window. 11 hours? At most." He pulled the freezer away from the wall. A black scorch marked the outlet. The cord insulation had melted near the plug. "Freezer shorted," he said. "Took the whole circuit. I put them on the same circuit. You used the outlets you had. I knew the wiring was old. You knew the building was old. That isn't the same as predicting this." Mara called every farmer before she let herself calculate. Joni came first. She opened each cheese, checked temperature and smell, then separated 9 wheels that could not be sold. Nathan arrived carrying empty crates. Lena came with vinegar, towels, and no questions. Hal brought a generator, though power had already been restored to the cooler through a heavy cable Eli ran from a front outlet. They worked for hours. Some thawed fruit went to Lena's kitchen for immediate cooking. Mount Olive took corn and beans for that evening's supper after Estelle inspected them. The rest went into compost bins behind the stand. Purple juice stained Mara's hands and the concrete floor. At the sorting table, Mara added the losses, $1,846. Her reserve held $650. "I'll pay everyone," she said. Joni looked up from wrapping salvageable cheese. "With what?" "The reserve now. The rest from sales." "How long?" Mara swallowed. 6 weeks, maybe 8. Nathan shook his head. The freezer failed. At my stand, my beans were in it, because I accepted them, and charged a storage fee. Yes. So the fee covered risk. It didn't cover this. "That's not what he means," Lena said. Mara looked around the table. "I'm responsible." Hal scratched at a berry stain on his sleeve. "Frank lost 6 bushels of my corn once. This isn't about Dad. Everything around here is about him until it isn't." Mara opened the reserve envelope and began counting. Joni put her hand over the bills. "Stop. I said I'd pay, and I said the cheese was mine until it sold. That's our agreement. The failure was mine. The electricity was yours. The cheese was mine. We split it." Nathan nodded. Lena did too. Mara stared at them. "You don't have to protect me." "We're protecting the stand," Lena said. "Different thing." They divided the loss according to the posted consignment rules, then rewrote those rules to cover equipment failure clearly. Mara paid the stand's share from the reserve. Nobody left happy. Nobody left cheated. The next morning, the cooler held only 11 items. The freezer sat unplugged in the lot with Brenda's Do Not Touch facing the highway. Mara turned the sign to Open Anyway. Bernice arrived with bread. Nathan brought tomatoes. Joni restocked 6 wheels, including horseradish. Lena filled 2 shelves with fresh peaches. One by one, they signed the new loss terms. At noon, Connor came in and looked at the scorched outlet. "I heard," he said. "Everybody heard. You need money?" "No." He nodded, unsurprised. "The orchard damage is confirmed," he said. "Spray drift. 12 trees may not recover. Does Wade know?" "He says the applicator's insurance should handle it." "Will it?" "Eventually, maybe." Mara put tomatoes into a little fork box. Connor picked one up, weighed it in his hand, and set it back gently. "Hal won't lend us his grain cart," he said. "Why?" Wade broke his boundary fence, moving the sprayer. "Did he fix it?" Connor looked toward the fields. Mara closed the box. "You know the answer," he said. "Then fix the fence," Mara said. Connor's gaze stayed on the scorched outlet. "Wade says Hal put it too close to the line. Is it on Hal's land?" "By 6 inches. "Then fix the fence." "It needs 3 posts, new wire, and a section of brace. You know how." "We're behind on equipment maintenance, so fix it after work." Connor gave her a tired look. "There isn't an after work right now." Mara taped the little fork box closed. "That sounds like something Wade would say." "I'm not Wade." "No. Wade would already be gone." He flinched again, and Mara hated the small satisfaction it gave her. Connor walked to the front door, stopped beneath the hanging bell, and looked back. "Did you mean what you said about the fence?" "No, the day we divided everything. When you asked who this was gonna work for." Mara wiped tomato dust from her palms. "I meant it then. What about now?" She looked around the stand. Morning sun fell across the bread shelves. The repaired cooler hummed on its new circuit, which had cost almost all the money left in the reserve. 11 produce boxes waited for Easton. Joni had written, "Do not stack" on one, and then stacked 2 others on top. "It works for me some days," Mara said. Connor nodded slowly. "That's something." He left. That Saturday, Hal found Connor replacing the boundary posts. Mara heard about it from Hal, Lena, Eli, and finally Connor, each version containing different tools and amounts of swearing. In Hal's account, Connor arrived at dawn with lumber in his pickup and apologized before opening the tailgate. In Eli's, Wade drove past twice and did not stop. Lena claimed the fence was now straighter than Hal deserved. Hal brought his grain cart to the stand that afternoon, not to lend it to the brothers, but to show Connor a cracked hitch. "You fixed that line right," Hal told him. "Might as well see if you can fix metal." Connor examined the crack. "Wade needs this cart." "I know. He'll pay the rental. Wade still owes me for diesel from June. I can pay it. Wasn't your promise?" Connor crouched beside the hitch. "What would it take for you to fix the weld?" "Lunch, to use the cart." Hal's face closed. "Your brother can ask me. He won't." "Then he don't want it." Connor stood. "We have 1,200 acres to harvest." The number made Mara turn from the register. Bell Farm held 400 acres. The brothers had leased neighboring ground and contracted to harvest 2 other farms. Wade had expanded farther than Mara knew. "You planted 1,200? She asked. "Some is custom work." "With how many machines?" 2 combines. "You had one. We leased another." Hal gave a low whistle. "That big green one?" Connor nodded. "That machine charges rent while it sleeps." "I know." Hal looked toward the White Bell Family Farm sign across the road. "Tell Wade to come ask." Connor did not. The grain cart remained in Hal's shed. The peaches gave way to apples. Green beans disappeared. Pumpkins occupied the floor beneath the sorting table, their stems catching Mara's skirts and customers' pant legs. Farmers who had come to the stand for summer sales began leaving coffee in the mornings and sitting near the register to discuss moisture levels, machinery parts, and the sky. Rain came twice in September, enough to settle dust. Then the weather turned dry and warm, and Wade's corn browned evenly across the fields. From the roadside, Bell Family Farms looked like success. Grain trucks moved through the lane. The leased combine stood taller than the lower barn. Wade added a second chemical tank and new floodlights around the equipment yard. At night, the farm shone behind the stand like a stadium. Mara rarely saw her brothers. Connor came in for sandwiches and paid exact change. He looked thinner. Wade passed on the road, usually on his phone. Once he stopped long enough to ask whether Mara knew anyone with extra bin space. "I know people who have bins," she said. "Same thing." "It isn't?" He rubbed the raw place beside his thumb. "Can you ask?" "No. You call people all day. For stand business. This is farm business. Your farm. Our family's farm. Family becomes a useful word when you need storage." Wade leaned against the counter. The bell above the door trembled from the movement. "Why do you have to make me beg?" he asked. Mara looked at him closely. He sounded genuinely confused. "I don't," she said. "Call them yourself. They'll answer you. Then ask yourself why." He left without buying anything. The first frost silvered the ditch in late October. 2 days later, rain began. It fell softly at first, pattering on the stand's metal roof, and making customers linger beside the coffee pot. By evening, water ran along both sides of the highway. Wade's combine worked under its lights until after midnight. The rain continued through morning. Mara drove to Lena's orchard for water, and found the lane washed with yellow leaves. Lena stood beneath the packing shed awning, watching the damaged western row bend in the wind. 5 trees had already been removed. 7 remained marked with orange tape. "Connor paid the inspection bill," Lena said. "Wade sent me the applicator's number." Mara connected the hose to her barrel. "Did he apologize?" "For what?" Apparently, the wind failed to respect his markers. The barrel filled. Rain drummed on its plastic lid. At the stand, the ditch rose to the edge of the gravel. Dana reduced the Little Fork order because fewer customers were driving. Nathan's last peppers developed soft spots before they sold. Mara shifted them to Mount Olive for soup and took a smaller fee. The third day of rain, Connor came in, soaked from his cap to his boots. "We're pulling the combine out of the river ground," he said. "With what?" "Tractor and 2 chains. Is it stuck?" "Not yet." "That's an interesting answer." He grabbed a cup of coffee and drank half without adding anything. Connor normally added enough cream to change the legal definition of coffee. "Buyer moved our delivery window up," he said. "Can they do that?" They did. "What happens if you miss it?" "We lose the premium. Maybe the contract, depending how late. How much corn is still standing?" "Too much." The rain on the roof made silence impossible. "Wade wants to use Mercer's lane," Connor said. Mara stopped arranging apples. Hal's gravel lane ran along the higher west ridge, connecting the county road to the rear of the Bell grain bins. Their father had used it during wet harvests and repaired it every spring. Wade had used it once in summer to move a loaded sprayer, broken the boundary fence at the lower turn, and left ruts. Hal filled himself. What did Hal say? "Wade hasn't asked." Mara gave Connor a flat look. "I asked." "And?" He said Wade can ask. "Then Wade should ask." "He won't." "Then you have your answer." Connor stared into the coffee cup. Rainwater dripped from his coat onto the floor. "We could lose the operation." Mara's hands went still. "Not the land, necessarily." He did not say the land, but leased machinery, delivery penalties, operating loans, fuel bills, seed, all the things Wade had called working pieces. "How close?" she asked. "I don't know." "That means close. It means Wade handles the financing." "And you signed?" "I trusted him." The words hung between them. Mara wanted to tell him trust was not a substitute for reading. She wanted to ask if trusting Wade felt different from expecting Mara to accept their settlement in one morning. Instead, she poured cream into his coffee. Connor watched the color change. "I didn't know about the 1,200 acres, she said. "He said scale would protect us. More volume, better prices, spread the machinery cost. Did it? On paper. So did equal shares." Connor set the cup down too hard. Coffee spilled over the rim. "I'm trying to tell you I'm scared." Mara looked at him. He had admitted fear before, usually disguised as a practical question. "Do you think Dad should see a doctor? Is that cough getting worse? Have you noticed Mom isn't eating?" He had never said the word plainly. She handed him a towel. "I know," she said. Connor wiped the counter. "Will you talk to Hal?" "No." His face hardened as if she had struck him. "I'll stand beside you while you talk to Hal," Mara said. "I'll tell him exactly what I know. I won't ask him to forget what Wade did. That won't be enough. It might not be. Connor left the coffee unfinished. Rain continued for 6 days. The river ground turned black and slick. From the stand, Mara watched the brothers' combine crawl across the higher fields, stopping whenever the hopper filled because no grain cart met it. Trucks waited near the lane, one left empty after 2 hours. Hal came for apples and said nothing about it. Joni came for cheese money and said Wade had delayed payment to the diesel cooperative. Nathan heard Bell Family Farms had canceled 2 custom harvest jobs. Lena heard the grain buyer would accept only 4 more days at the contracted price. Mara refused to carry messages. She corrected rumors when she knew they were wrong and said she did not know when she did not. On Friday afternoon, Connor returned with mud to his knees. Wade asked Hal, he said, "What happened?" He told Hal Dad would have opened the lane for anybody. Mara closed her eyes. Hal asked who repaired Dad's lane every spring. What did Wade say? That the past was the past. Then, Hal said so was permission. Connor rubbed both hands over his face. Wade called him a spiteful old bastard. Where? Feed store? In front of people? Yes. Mara looked toward Hal, who was outside loading apples into his truck. His movements were slow and exact. Did Wade apologize? No. Then, I don't know what you want me to do. I don't either. The next morning was the stand's fall market. Mara had planned it before the rain, pumpkins along the lot, apple butter simmering under the awning, Joni slicing cheese, Lena selling cider, Nathan bringing the last greenhouse tomatoes. Despite the wet roads, cars filled the gravel pull-off and parked along the highway's shoulder. The stand smelled of cinnamon, coffee, damp coats, and people. At 11, Wade's pickup drove over the grass and stopped beside the blue water barrels. He entered through the back doors, bringing mud with him. Mara. She was weighing apples for Dana Mills. I'm busy. We need the lane today. Hal stood near the front counter. Lena stopped pouring cider. Connor came in behind Wade, breathing hard. Talk outside, Mara said. No, they're all here. Wade looked around the crowded room. Tell your people to stop playing games. Nobody moved. Mara handed Dana the bag of apples. These aren't my people, she said. Wade's laugh was sharp and exhausted. Don't be cute. They listen to you. They trust me. That isn't the same. Then use it. For what? To get the crop in before they ruin us. Hale set down his coffee. Wade pointed toward him. Dad gave him access across our south field for 20 years. And Dad repaired my road, Hal said. I'll repair it after harvest. You said that about my fence. I have bigger problems than your fence. That's why you still got one. Wade turned back to Mara. His eyes were red, his jacket streaked with mud. Tell them to cooperate. Mara could feel everyone waiting, not for an order, for an answer. She set the scale weight carefully beside Dana's apples. If you want their help, she said, you ask them yourself, and this time you accept their terms. Wade looked from Mara to Hal. All right, he said. I'm asking. Hal waited. We need to use the west lane. That's a statement, Hal said. Wade's nostrils flared. Can we use your lane? Under what terms? Neighbor terms. You called me a spiteful old bastard yesterday. I was angry. So was I. Manage not to insult your parentage. A few customers eased toward the front door. Dana took her apples and stayed. Joni planted herself beside the cheese samples, knife in hand. Wade glanced at the people around him. Do we have to do this here? You brought it here, Mara said. Hal folded his arms. Fence gets repaired before anything crosses. You pay the diesel from June. Any rut deeper than my boot heel, you bring gravel. We don't have time to repair a fence. Then you don't have time to use the lane. The corn is standing in water. My road isn't. Wade turned toward the others. This is what I'm talking about. You're willing to watch a farm go under over 3 fence posts. No, Connor said. You are. The words were not loud, but they cleared the room more effectively than a shout. Wade stared at him. Connor stood just inside the back doors, dripping mud onto the concrete. He looked exhausted and frightened, but he did not look away. You broke it, Connor said. You said we'd repair it later. You delayed Hal's money. You blamed Lena for the drift. You promised 2 custom jobs we couldn't finish. Stop standing here like everybody woke up wanting to ruin us. Wade's mouth tightened. You signed off on every acre. I signed what you put in front of me. Then act like a partner. I am. I'm telling you the truth. This isn't the place. It's exactly the place. Mara watched Connor's hands. They were shaking. Wade noticed too. His expression shifted for 1 second toward concern. Then pride covered it. You don't know what I'm managing, he said, because you don't tell me. I tell you what you need. You told Mara what she needed too. The market had become completely silent. Even the simmering apple butter seemed to lower its bubble. Mara said, everyone who isn't involved should go back to shopping. Nobody moved. Joni pointed her cheese knife toward the front shelves. You heard her. Pumpkins aren't going to admire themselves. The room slowly broke apart. Customers began speaking in murmurs. Dana took 3 steps away and examined a jar with scholarly intensity. Hal remained where he was. Lena stood beneath the old sign, holding a cider cup between both hands. Wade stepped closer to Connor. What are you doing? What I should have done in March. Mara felt cold despite the crowded room. Connor looked at her. We knew you couldn't fight the settlement. Wade's head snapped toward him. That is not what happened. We knew. Speak for yourself. I am. You knew too. Mara's hand found the edge of the counter. Connor swallowed. The lawyer said any of us could reject the parcel split. Wade said if you did, we'd have to sell or force a division. He said you wouldn't risk losing the stand or tying everything up because you had no income. I explained the situation, Wade said. I didn't invent it. You gave her one morning. She could have asked for time. Mara looked at Wade. Connor tried to give me time. You sat there. I didn't stop you from taking it. No, you just brought planting bills, debt totals, and an agreement with tabs already stuck to every line. Wade's face reddened. We assumed the debt. You assumed land with debt attached and gave you payments. 5 years of payments for my third of 400 acres. The appraisals? Don't, Connor said. Wade turned on him. You wanted the river ground. I did. The admission was plain, without protection. Connor faced Mara. I wanted it. I told myself I'd worked it, that you hated the fields after Mom got sick, that the stand was what you'd choose anyway. I let him say it was fair because fair got me what I wanted. Mara could hear the bell above the door as people came and went. Somebody laughed near the pumpkins, then stopped abruptly. Dad told me something before he died, Connor said. Wade closed his eyes. There was the answer to the glance at the kitchen table, the blink that had lasted 1 second too long. When? Mara asked. January, we were in the dialysis parking lot. Wade was talking about expanding after spring, and Dad said land was the easy part. He said you were the only one of us who understood what held Bell Farm together. Mara's fingers pressed harder into the counter. Connor's voice broke. I didn't tell you. Why? He looked around the stand. At the produce from 7 farms, the envelopes, the posted schedules, the little fork boxes stacked beneath the sorting table, because I wanted him to be wrong. The honesty did not feel cleansing. It felt like a blade removed slowly. Mara had spent months asking herself whether her father saw her work, or merely depended on it. Connor had possessed an answer, not a perfect answer, not an apology from the dead, but something, and buried it because it threatened the shape of his inheritance. Wade said, Dad said things when he was sick. Connor turned. He knew exactly where he was. You don't know what he meant. I do now. Wade looked at Mara. His anger had gone slack around the edges. I thought you wanted the stand, he said. I did. Then what are you saying? That you should have gotten land in the stand? I'm saying wanting the crumb didn't make the rest of the bread yours. He looked as if she had slapped him. For a moment, Mara almost apologized. The old reflex rose on schedule. Soften the room, translate everyone, keep the family moving. She let the silence remain uncomfortable. Hal cleared his throat. My terms stand. Wade turned toward him. And Lena's damage isn't weeds, Hal continued. Everybody with eyes knows that. Lena did not move. Wade looked from Hal to Connor, then toward the wet fields visible beyond the windows. What do you want me to do? He asked Mara. Not what should I do. Not what would make this right. The question still tried to hand her the burden. She shook her head. Ask them. I did. You asked for the lane? Ask what you owe. Hal answered first. $280 for diesel, fence before trucks. Gravel afterward if needed. Wade took out his phone. I can transfer the diesel now. I take checks. You don't trust a transfer? I don't understand a transfer. Different flaw. Wade almost smiled. It disappeared quickly. He looked at Lena. She set down her cider. Walk the damaged row with me. Say what happened without blaming my boundary. Pay for the trees if they have to come out. Insurance. Insurance can repay you. Wade breathed through his nose. Anything else? Yes. Apologize. His face closed again. Lena picked up her cup. Then, no. You don't own the lane. No, but you're not asking only for a lane. You'll need drivers, storage, repairs, food, people you've spent a year treating like spare equipment. Mara watched Wade realize the shape of his problem. Land had given him a crop. It could not make anyone help him move it. He lowered his head. I'm sorry, he said. Lena waited. For the spray. And for saying your orchard caused it. And, Wade looked at her. I knew the wind changed. Connor told me. I didn't stop the applicator fast enough. The words seemed to cost him physically. Lena's expression did not soften. Thank you. Do you forgive me? No. A startled laugh escaped Nathan near the tomatoes. Lena continued. But I believe you. Wade wrote Hal a check on the sorting table. Then he called the diesel cooperative and paid the overdue balance. The conversation was brief and humiliating because he had to repeat his account number while everyone pretended not to hear. Hal inspected the check. Fence, he said. The fall market thinned by one. Mara expected people to leave after buying cider and pumpkins. Instead, Eli arrived with a post driver. Nathan closed his greenhouse early and brought fencing pliers. Connor loaded posts into Wade's pickup. Wade stood beside the truck, looking lost. Go, Mara told him. You coming? I have a market. For once, he did not ask her to leave her work for his. They repaired the fence in 2 hours. Mara knew because Hal telephoned at 1:30. Posts are straight, he said. High praise, wires a little tight. Will it hold? Unless Wade drives through it. Is the lane open? Hal took his time answering. Till the last truck, he said. Not a minute longer. Mara put down the phone and opened her order book. The stand system became a harvest board. Hal's lane could handle one loaded truck at a time on the lower turn. 3 drivers were available. The grain buyer would receive deliveries until 10 at night for 3 days. Joni knew a retired hauler willing to drive if Wade paid cash. Eli could keep the leased combine running, but refused to work without a rest rotation. Lena offered the packing shed for meals, not grain. Mara wrote names, times, loads, fuel, and destinations on the chalkboard usually used for produce prices. She did not order anyone. She asked what they could do and wrote down what they promised. Wade came in muddy at dusk. Mercer says talk to you about drivers. Joni found one. Cash each day. How much? Mara told him. That's high. Then use 2 drivers. We need 3. Then it's the price. He stared at the board. You put Eli on overnight repair. He put himself there. Connor needs to run the second combine. He's resting from 10 to 2. We don't have 4 hours. He has been awake since yesterday. So have I. You're resting after midnight. Wade gave a disbelieving laugh. You're scheduling me now? No, I'm telling you when the people helping you will be unavailable. You can collapse wherever you like. He looked at her for a long moment. Midnight, he said. The harvest moved through darkness and rain. Trucks crawled along Hal's Ridge Lane, headlights shining between wet trees. Connor ran the older combine on the high ground, while Wade worked the leased machine. Eli slept in his truck beside the lower barn, waking whenever a machine made a sound nobody liked. The stand stayed open late. Lena and Joni made coffee and sandwiches. Nathan carried fuel cans until Mara told him 3 times that someone else could. Dana postponed the Little Fork order without penalty and sent bottled water for the drivers. At 2 in the morning, Mara drove meals to the field. Wade sat on the combine steps eating a sandwich with both hands. Mud covered his boots and the bottom of his jeans. How many acres? She asked. 70 today? Enough? No. She handed him coffee. He looked toward the road, where another truck's lights climbed Hal's lane. Dad could have gotten them to help without all this, he said. Dad repaired the road. Wade nodded. It was the first time he accepted the answer. The rain eased on the second night. By the 3rd afternoon, the river began spilling into the lowest section of Connor's ground. 27 acres remained unharvested there. Wade wanted to send the leased combine in. Connor blocked the field entrance with his pickup. It'll sink, he said. We leave that corn, we lose it. We put the machine in, we lose both. Wade got out of the combine. Mara watched from the stand's delivery truck, where she had brought fuel receipts for signatures. The brothers faced each other in ankle-deep mud. Months earlier, Connor would have moved his pickup. He did not. Wade looked toward Mara, perhaps expecting her to decide. She remained beside the truck. Finally, Wade shut down the combine. They lost the 27 acres, but the final contracted load reached the buyer 9 minutes before the window closed. The premium held on what they delivered. It was enough to prevent the immediate collapse Connor had feared, not enough to erase the penalties, the leased machinery cost, or the grain left under river water. Near midnight, the last truck returned empty. Hal closed the gate across his lane. At the stand, the chalkboard was crowded with crossed-out names and completed loads. Mud covered the floor. Empty coffee cups stood among the pumpkins. Wade entered behind Connor. The farmers who had helped were still there, tired and wet and waiting to be paid. For the first time in Mara's memory, her brothers stood at the counter with no field, machine, or family name capable of settling what they owed. Mara pulled the clean payment sheets from the office. Wade stared at them. Right now? Right now. It's midnight. The work is done. Joni sat on the edge of the sorting table and unlaced one wet boot. She gets poetic when she's billing. Mara wrote each name on the chalkboard. Drivers first. Fuel reimbursements. Eli's repair hours. Hal's lane fee was 0 because he refused to charge for access, but gravel and fence materials appeared beneath his name. Food supplied by Lena, Joni, Nathan, and Mount Olive went on separate lines. Wade watched the total rise. "We haven't been paid by the buyer," he said. "You received the delivery confirmations. Money clears Monday. Then checks are dated Monday." Hal folded his arms. "Mine includes gravel. We don't know the damage yet. Then we look at daylight and add it." Wade started to object. Connor took the checkbook from his hand. "We'll look at daylight," he said. Wade let go. The small surrender changed something in the room. Not forgiveness, nothing so clean. But for the first time, Connor sat beside Wade instead of slightly behind him. They went through every line together. When Wade claimed a driver had worked 9 hours, Connor corrected it to 11. When Connor forgot the fuel Eli had brought from his cousin's tank, Wade added it. Mara entered the stand's coordination fee last. Wade looked up. "You're charging us?" "Yes." "For making phone calls? For organizing 3 drivers, 2 combines, repairs, meals, fuel, delivery times, and rest schedules." "We're family," Hal groaned. Wade glanced toward him. "I wasn't talking to you. You were talking loud enough to injure me." Mara kept her pen on the number. "Bell's roadside stand is separate from Bell Family Farms. You insisted on that." Wade read the line again. Then he nodded. "Fair." The word was not an apology, but it was the first time he had applied it to her without a map in front of him. By 1 in the morning, every amount had a name, a due date, and a signature. Nobody was asked to trust a memory. Nobody had to leave, wondering whether gratitude would become payment. The farmers drifted out in 2s and 3s. Hal took the last coffee. Joni forgot one boot, returned for it, and blamed exhaustion on the boot. Lena hugged Mara once, hard and brief, then whispered, "Your peaches still face wrong." When the doors closed, mud remained everywhere. Wade picked up the mop. Mara almost laughed. "Do you know how to use that? I know what a mop is." That sentence runs in the family. Connor collected cups and food wrappers. Eli wiped down the sorting table, though Mara told him he had already worked enough. "You're terrible at taking your own advice," she said. "I'm excellent at advice. Following it is a separate trade." Near 2, Connor fell asleep sitting against the cooler. His chin dropped to his chest, one muddy hand still holding a trash bag. Wade wrung out the mop. "I didn't think the stand could do this," he said. "Sell pumpkins? Move people?" Mara stacked the marked payment sheets in the office drawer. "People move themselves. You know what I mean?" She did. Wade leaned on the mop handle. The market had stripped him of some polished layer, mud dried in cracks across his boots. His hair stood up where he had pulled off his cap. "I thought, if we got big enough, nobody could tell us no," he said. "How'd that work?" One side of his mouth moved. "Not great." Mara waited. "I'm going to have to sell equipment, yes. Maybe give up the custom contracts. Yes." "You enjoy saying that?" "A little." He nodded as if he deserved it. Across the room, Connor snored softly. Wade looked at him, then toward Mara's office. I was afraid if we split the land 3 ways, none of us would have enough to keep farming. So, you made sure I didn't. I told myself you'd hate it. I might have. That answer surprised him. Mara sat on the office threshold. I didn't want to run a combine. I didn't want river ground. I wanted somebody to ask as if my answer mattered. Wade lowered his gaze. I can't undo it, he said. No, I can pay more. That wouldn't undo it either. What do you want? Mara looked at the old sign visible backward through the front glass. The painted letters had survived heat, rain, and years of her father refusing to replace them because people still knew what they said. I wanted you to understand what you took. Wade's hands tightened on the mop handle. I'm beginning to, he said. It was not enough. It was also more than he had given her before. Mara stood and took the mop. Wake Connor, she said. Go sleep. Water remained across the lowest 27 acres for 9 days. When it receded, the corn lay gray and flattened beneath silt. The brothers harvested none of it. The grain buyer paid Monday. Every helper's check cleared. Wade and Connor returned the leased combine, sold the newer grain trailer and 1 chemical tank, and withdrew from the custom contracts they could not fulfill. The expansion that was supposed to protect them left behind bills they would spend years paying, but Bell family farms survived at a size closer to the land they actually owned. Hal received 3 loads of gravel before he requested 2. He complained that Wade was trying to improve the road enough to attract tourists. Lena's damaged row lost 7 trees. Wade paid for each one in monthly installments. The first time he visited the orchard, he walked the boundary without commenting on the weeds. Lena made him dig one of the replacement holes because, as she told Mara, apologies were too light for their size. Connor began reading every invoice, loan statement, and contract. Wade resented it loudly and then started bringing papers to him. Before signing, they fought more. They also made fewer expensive mistakes. When the 5-year settlement payment came due, Wade asked Mara whether she could accept half in December and half in January. No, she said. He looked hurt. Then he sold an unused grain auger and paid on time. Winter narrowed the stand but did not close it. Mara sold storage apples, cheese, bread, preserves, potatoes, and frozen vegetables after a commercial electrician installed separate circuits, and Eli found a freezer with no woman's name written on the side. The farmers voted to increase the equipment fee until the reserve was rebuilt. They called it a vote because Mara refused to decide for them. She added a morning off each week. At first, customers still knocked on the glass. Mara hid upstairs until they left. Later, she spent those mornings at Eli's house, where he cooked eggs badly and would not let her fix them by taking over the pan. He accepted the partnership with his cousins on the condition that on-call work rotated. They accused Mara of corrupting him. She said his corruption had started years earlier with stolen crackers. In February, Connor came to the stand with a folded county map. Mara stiffened when he spread it on the sorting table. No butter knife? She asked. I considered bringing one. He pointed to 30 acres of higher river ground and a 12-acre strip beside the lower barn. Nathan needs stable ground, he said. He loses his current lease after this season. Ruth Avery wants more space for herbs and specialty greens. Ruth supplied the stand twice a month and argued with Joni about whether basil belonged near cheese. What are you asking me? Mara said. What fair rent would look like. Ask them. I will. I wanted to know whether the stand could commit to taking part of what they grow. Not all of it, no. Written prices by Tuesday. Connor smiled. I've heard. Nathan leased the 30 acres. Ruth took the 12. Connor paid for soil tests. They paid rent. And every expectation went into a plain agreement all 3 could understand. Wade complained that vegetables would complicate equipment routes, then helped Nathan move irrigation pipe after being told the route would be easier if he did. Spring returned through boxes. Spinach first. Green onions, radishes, Joni's fresh cheese. Lena's early peaches arrived later, fragrant and warm, with Wade's replacement trees growing green along the western row. The stand needed another sorting table, then a covered loading area. Mara paid for both from the reserve and waited on new shelves until the cash existed. She installed a permanent cistern behind the building so water could be delivered once a week instead of hauled in blue barrels. She kept one raspberry-smelling barrel beneath the stairs because throwing it away felt disrespectful. The room upstairs gained a shower, insulation, and a window that no longer rattled at every logging truck. Mara kept her mother's lamp and the tractor cup on the sill. She spent the $6 bill eventually. Eli framed it first, then put a photocopy beneath the cup. Mara used the original to buy a biscuit from Hal, who claimed inflation had forced him into breakfast commerce. By the next fall market, the painted board beneath the old sign had weathered gray. Eli removed it before dawn and carried it around back. "What are you doing?" Mara asked, following instructions. "I gave those instructions 3 months ago. You changed the wording 7 times. It had to fit. The new sign required both of them to lift." The old Bell's roadside stand remained above it, faded but intact. Beneath, on clean cream-colored boards, dark green letters read, "Bell Road Market." Smaller names filled 3 rows: Ortiz Orchard, Pike Dairy, Mercer Produce, Cole Vegetables, Avery Herbs, Bell Family Farms. There were others too. Every regular participant painted the same size. No family name bigger than another, Mara had told the sign painter. Lena objected that her orchard deserved larger letters because peaches had more personality than potatoes. Hal objected that his name sat beside hers. Joni objected to nothing, which made everybody nervous. Cars began arriving before the cider heated. Dana brought extra boxes from Little Fork. Estelle set up biscuits under the awning. The gravel lot filled with farmers unloading produce and customers pretending not to notice that Joni's samples were twice the size Mara had approved. At 8:30, Wade and Connor backed a truck to the loading area. The bed held crates of sweet corn. 7 acres worth, Wade explained. Their father's old patch on the high ground, planted after Connor found a jar of seed in the lower barn and determined it was still good. Mara pulled back 1 husk. The kernels were small at the tip, but full and milky beneath. "How much?" she asked. Wade told her. "Too high." "It's good corn. It's late corn. Hal has 30 dozen coming at noon." Connor leaned against the truck. "Told you." Wade ignored him. "What can you pay?" Mara gave him a number. He considered it, then nodded. "Consignment fee is 6%, she said. "You get 1 outside table. Extra goes in the back, not the cooler. Unsold crates leave tonight." "We know the rules," Connor said. Wade looked up at the signs. His gaze rested on Bell Family Farms, painted no larger than Pike Dairy or Ortiz Orchard. "You put us on," he said. "You're participating." Something moved across his face that Mara chose not to rescue him from. "Where do you want the corn?" he asked. Her brothers stood beside the truck and waited. Beyond them, their fields reached toward the tree line, broad and golden under the October sun. Mara could still name everyone. She could still remember the kitchen map and the butter knife sliding over all that green paper before stopping at a roadside crumb. The memory hurt. It no longer told her what she was worth. Mara opened the loading door and pointed to the clean space beside Nathan's tomatoes. "Bring it in," she said.